Today, we're going to be taking a look at some of the most anticipated FNAF fan games the community has ever seen. Whether they spent years in development, built enormous hype through trailers, or had fans counting down the days until release, these games had everyone's attention. Some of these releases feel like major events for the entire FNAF community, so let's dive into them.
Sometimes, while digging through GameJolt for a FNAF game to play, I find a game that feels like it's inspired by FNAF rather than being a fan game. And it's usually these games that get me super interested in them, their stories, characters, and gameplay loops. By the way, don't sort the FNAF section of GameJolt by newest. You will find some of the weirdest, most god-awful, foul, slapped-together games of all time. Before we start, at the end of the last video, I asked you all what your favorite Five Nights at Wario's 1 character was and why. My favorite answer was this one from Platinum Comet. Not only did they share the same favorite character I had, but they also provided a really good explanation as to why. If you'd like a chance to get your comment at the beginning of a video, stick around to the end when I ask another question. Anyways, a few days ago, I found a FNAF game that blew me out of the water, which is really a good thing because I'm very scared of bodies of water. This game is Playtime with Percy, with a gameplay loop so unique and consistently interesting, along with animatic cutscenes, amazing 2D art, and a final sequence that might be one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I knew I had to talk about it. So sit back, grab a snack, or don't, I'm not your dad, I can't tell you what to do, and get ready to dive into the world of Playtime with Percy. Upon loading up the game and starting a new game, we're greeted with something really refreshing for this genre. Rather than just showing the night screen and hopping in and having a phone call relay all information that we need, we're instead shown a very well-drawn cutscene. While it's more a visual novel and not an animation, it's still super nice nonetheless. Our boss calls us in the middle of the night and asks us for a favor. Even though we were laid off from working at Percy's Playhouse, the location where this game takes place, our boss asks if we'd be willing to do some work for the week as he plans to shut down and have the building demolished on Friday. He needs us to watch over the building and do some extra tasks like fixing up the animatronics, since he plans on selling them because they're still worth a decent amount of money. So I have a question already. If we got laid off and no longer work for this guy, why the hell did we answer the phone? I used to work at a Subway until I quit. Even if right now I got a call from my boss from said Subway, there's no chance in hell I would answer it. Maybe I'm just a dick, I don't know. We agree to help our boss for $250. That's it. The whole week. Monday through Friday, $250. Our character, Nick, was happy to accept that. Either this game takes place in 1920, or Nick is the poorest human being on the planet Earth. Unlike most FNAF games, the way this game's gameplay loop works is actually really interesting and a lot different. Each night you do a normal office section, but then afterwards you do another survival minigame that changes with each night. So let's start with Monday. On Monday is where we obviously learn the basics of how the gameplay works. Instead of having to survive until an arbitrary time, you have to do a large task. Once it's done, the night is over. Meaning nights can be finished in 3 minutes or take an hour, depending on how terrible you are at micromanagement. Which, by the way, this game is not for people who are easily overwhelmed. Holy shit, the amount of things you have to memorize and keep track of and react to is batshit insane. However, this game does a really good job of easing you into every new threat it throws at you. I highly recommend you play with tutorials on your first playthrough, as it helped me out a lot to understand what I needed to do. If I didn't have these tutorials on, never in my life would I have figured out how to deal with some of these animatronics. Before I talk about the animatronics that you see on Monday, let's talk about the task that you have to complete every night. You are given a Tamagotchi-like toy called Pal Percy. On this toy, there are 3 possible minigames that you can play. Each time you complete a minigame, you will be given a specific amount of points. Once you collect enough points, the night will end. As the nights go on, in addition to all the new threats that are added, you will also have to gain an additional amount of points. Just a little something to make this game feel even more stressful. Also, if at any point you go without completing a minigame for too long, you will die. The first of the 3 games is a feeding game. There are 3 possible lanes that food can be dropped down, and you have to move your character, which is Percy, under the food to collect them. After collecting 3 or 4 pieces depending on what the game told you to grab, you will gain your points. The second minigame is a watering minigame. You have to shake a bottle of water up and down to get the water to fill a bowl. Once it's full, you'll get your points. And the third minigame is the play minigame, my favorite of the three. Percy will move into one of 3 lanes. You will have to move a ball into the same lane and throw it to Percy. After doing this around 5 times, you collect your points. Now, you're unable, most of the time, to do the same minigame multiple times in a row, forcing you to become efficient at all of them. I'm not totally sure how the algorithm for deciding when you can replay a minigame you've already played works, but typically from what I noticed, it seems that once you play a game, it disables. Then, when you complete the other 2 games, it will be enabled again. But keep in mind, that's how I think it works, and I could be, and probably am wrong. The other tool you get is a camera system. Pretty basic stuff, you can see where the animatronics are. FNAF, 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 let's talk about the animatronics. The 2 animatronics on this night are Charlie Cat and Mother Moose. They both work the same way, with a small difference. Both characters will move around the cameras until they enter one of your 2 vents. If you look to the left and rights of your office, you'll be able to see these vents. Now's a good time to mention that I was playing this game with the additional cues setting enabled. I'm not sure what changes if that setting is off, so if your gameplay has some inaccuracies with mine, that setting I turned on is probably why. I also had the colorblind setting on because I am, and there's a lot of color related segments in this game. It really usually just adds symbols on top of colors, but whatever. Where was I? Oh yeah, Charlie Cat and Mother Moose will come into your vents and poke their heads out to look at you. When they do, depending on which one of them it is, you will either have to raise your pal Percy or your camera. If Charlie peeks into your office, you need to drop whatever tool you have up and look at him. If you don't, you die. If Mother Moose peeks in at you, you have to make sure that you are holding up either your pal Percy or your camera. It doesn't matter which one, and if you don't, you die. Pretty simple, but really gets you used to the buttons you need to memorize, since one of the only things I had a consistent problem with in this game was remembering what buttons did what. It's not nearly as horrifying as FNAF Ultimate Custom Night keybinds, but it still confused me personally a lot. After gathering all the points you need, you move on to the post-Monday minigame. In this minigame, your only threat is Charlie Cat. The task you have to complete in this night is selling all of the animatronics in an online auction. Doing so is really easy. Each animatronic has a price that our boss wants us to sell it for. If a buyer isn't offering the exact price we want for it, you click decline and enter a random number the game generates. Every time you decline, the offer will be raised by $100. Once the number is correct, you click accept and move on to the next animatronic. While you're doing this, however, occasionally you will hear Charlie approaching. When you do, all you have to do is hide under your desk until he walks away, then come back up and continue selling. Something this game does that I really like is treat these post-night minigames as a boss battle. Once you sell half the animatronics, Charlie enters his enraged state, just like when you bring a boss's health down halfway in a game like Terraria. When Charlie Cat is enraged, he will come to find you more frequently, you will have less time to react to him, and he will stay in your room longer. On top of that, you will begin getting pop-ups on your computer that you will have to close out of before you can continue auctioning the animatronics. Once selling all of them off, Monday is over. On Tuesday, we're thrown back into the office with a new threat being introduced, Farmer Felix. Sporadically throughout the night, he will begin walking outside of the large window in your office. A newly appeared board is displayed in the top left corner of your screen with 4 colors on it. When Felix walks past, his eyes will glow one of these 4 colors, and you will have to select which color his eyes are on the board before he gets to the other side of your window. Overall, this is super simple to deal with, but on top of everything else you will soon be dealing with, he could very easily become something you forget about. Moving on to Tuesday's post-night minigame, we find ourselves in front of an arcade machine. The task we have to complete here is beating the high score of 6,000 points. You control a small rocket that shoots lasers. Occasionally, UFOs will drop from the top of the screen and we'll have to shoot them. Green UFOs don't do anything special, but red UFOs will shoot lasers at us too. We start with 3 lives, and if at any point our life drops to 0, we die. There are also 3 power-ups that have a chance of dropping. One makes us shoot faster, another gives us a shield, and the final gives us 1 life. The boss of this night is Mother Moose. You will have to listen incredibly closely for 2 distinct sound cues to play. When you hear them, you can pause the game and turn around. Then flash your camera to scare Mother Moose away. If you don't do this in time, you die. That sounds pretty easy, but the arcade game makes more noise than a bombing. so hearing Mother Moose can actually be pretty difficult at times. Once you reach the halfway point, she becomes enraged. While enraged, she will attack more frequently and take 2 camera flashes instead of 1, meaning you have to react way faster. In addition, asteroids and yellow UFOs are added to the arcade game. Asteroids are really large. They take way more shots to kill than a UFO, but move very slowly. Yellow UFOs can move horizontally in addition to moving vertically. They don't shoot lasers though, so they're not really an issue. Once you reach 6,000 points, it's on to Wednesday. Wednesday introduces a new tool and a new animatronic. The new tool is your door. Clicking it will lock it. This is important because of the new threat, Percy Poodle, the main antagonist of this game. Percy will make his way down your hall throughout the night. When he gets to your door, he will start pounding on it and you'll have to lock the door until he gives up. In addition, a very small version of Percy will quickly and randomly open your door and peek in. When he does, just close the door quickly and he'll leave. Pretty simple and easy to understand mechanics, but with how difficult the other characters are starting to get, this on top of all of it is where this game starts to get really stressful. Now let's talk about the Wednesday post-night minigame. In this minigame, your task is repairing the power. You have to do this for each room in the building through a panel. Once you choose a room, you will have to play one of a few selection of minigames. All of them are pretty simple, and I'm sure you'll be able to figure out how they play just by looking at the screen. Each room requires you to complete 2 of these minigames before the power to them comes back online. The boss of this night is Rowan Rat, a character that will be introduced next night. Throughout the night, you will hear a distinct sound cue. When you do, you have to turn around and flash your flashlight at him. Behind you, there are 4 large holes in the wall, and there's no telling which one he'll pop out of. Once you flash him, he quickly leaves and you're free to continue. Once you restore power to 3 of the 6 rooms, Rowan becomes enraged. While enraged, he will attack more frequently, you will have less time to flash him, and he will require you to flash him twice. After flashing him the first time, he will crawl back into his hole and appear out of another one. Out of all the post-night minigames, this one is definitely my favorite. The flow of how it plays, mixed with it probably being the least stressful, is really refreshing with how fast my heart was typically beating throughout the game. After getting the power to all the rooms back online, it's on to Thursday. Before Thursday night, however, when walking out of the building, Nick finds a tape, and you get the choice of whether or not you want to pick it up. As far as I'm aware, picking it up doesn't change the gameplay, and there's not multiple endings to this game. If you pick up the tape, you get some lore and foreshadowing. If you don't, you just move on. I picked up the tape because I'm a Chad gamer. Putting in the tape, it doesn't seem to play anything, so Nick goes to bed. But as soon as he leaves, the tape begins to play. We're told that the Pal Percy toy is being recalled. We're told it poses significant threats to children, but it's not elaborated on. People are told to return the toy to whichever store they bought it from, but since Nick went to bed and never saw this, he will still continue to use his pal Percy during the nights. On Thursday night, we're introduced to the previously mentioned Rowan Rat, and we get a new tool for us to stress over. This night was by far the most confusing for me, since I didn't understand what the tutorial was telling me, but let me explain. In your cameras, you will find that you have a new subsection. It's a motion detector for cameras 1 through 4, which are the cameras for each corner of the establishment. You will need to check these motion detectors throughout the night to see if Rowan Rat has moved. If he moves to a specific camera, which you can tell because the camera in the motion sensor section will turn red, you will have to go to the actual corresponding camera and use one of your shocks on Rowan to reset him. In addition to this, if that wasn't enough to make you want to die from anxiety, that small Percy that opens your door will now also occasionally spawn in one of your cameras. When he does, you'll have to find him and navigate to the camera he's on and stare at him until he goes away. If you don't do this in time, he will disable the camera system, stopping you from being able to shock Rowan, which will obviously lead to you dying. Now for the part that should have been obvious that I didn't understand. The tutorial states that you need to watch out for an alert icon on the E UI. When you press E in game, this opens up your camera. When you see that alert, that's how you know that you need to go find the mini Percy on your cameras. I thought this meant that the alert would appear on my camera. That it does not. Instead, it appears right above the little E button in the corner of your screen. Again, I'm really dumb for not figuring this out immediately, but this is hands down the most stressful mechanic the game has introduced so far. And in mixture with everything else you have to deal with and the constant overwhelming noise that you'll be hearing, it gets really fucking anxiety inducing. Don't believe me about the noise? This is what the night sounds like throughout its entirety. Yeah, it's pretty ass. But after completing your task, we can move on to the Thursday post-night minigame. In this minigame, your task is fixing Farmer Felix. After opening up his head, you're greeted with 4 small sub-minigames to complete. Each is pretty simple, you can do them in any order, but I did them from top to bottom. The first one is the gear game. You just have to match up each of 4 colored gears to the small brackets. Do this 3 times and the game is finished. The second minigame sucks really hard, mainly because I'm stupid and didn't understand it right away. You're given 2 boards, each with the beginning and end of a sentence. You have to swap through different options until you have a complete sentence that makes sense. After doing that a few times, the game is finished. I really hated this one since it made no sense to me and took me an embarrassingly long time to figure out. You can watch my full playthrough on my second channel, Dxtr Black, by the way. Before talking about the other 2 minigames, the boss of this night surprisingly isn't Farmer Felix. Instead, it's 2 small Percy poodles. While you're working on Felix, occasionally you hear a sound cue. When you do, you'll have to back up and find one or both of the poodles in the room and click on them to make them go away. Once you complete 2 of the 4 sub-minigames, the poodles become enraged. While enraged, they will appear more frequently and require you to click them twice rather than just once. Not too bad, honestly. The third minigame consists of spinning a crank on the bottom of the screen to fill this white bar. If you wind the crank too much, Felix will overheat. I didn't let this happen, so I don't know what happens if you do. I'd have to imagine you either die or you have to wait a while to be able to continue. When you're not cranking, the white bar will slowly decrease. Once the bar is full, the game finishes. The final minigame is just Simon Says. Beat a few levels, and it's finished. And with that, we're done with the post-night and can move on to Friday night. Friday night adds nothing new to the gameplay loop, just increases the difficulty of every character we've seen thus far. After completing your tasks, we can move on to the final post-night minigame. Friday's post-night minigame is us fixing up Percy. We open up his stomach and play 3 small minigames. The first is just matching these colored knobs to the colors of their corresponding wires. Do this 3 times and we move on to the next. The second game requires us to flip 8 switches. Every few seconds, any number of them can unflip, and we'll have to flip them again. Do this until the bar fills up and we move on to the next. The final game requires us to watch 3 squares. The moment they turn green, we have to quickly click on them. Do this a few times, and we can finally get to Percy's battery. I have no idea why there's so many security measures to get to this point, and why they're all so simple a toddler could perform them. It seems pretty counterintuitive. But before anything else happens, Percy's battery begins to smoke. We call our boss and tell him what's happening. Our boss says we either need to replace his battery or find a substitute battery. Not knowing what to do, Nick puts the pal Percy inside of Percy in place of his battery, and it works. Hooray! And with that, the credits roll. In all honesty, this game is super unique and enjoyable. I really like how each night feels different from every other, and how... Wait, what the fuck? Oh yeah, that's right, baby. Final boss fight time. The pal Percy took over Percy's body and spread wires throughout the building. We run and hide in a storage closet. We find an early version of a pal Percy, and luckily for us, it's hooked up to the power. Just like in previous nights, we have to play 3 minigames to fill up the bar. When we fill up the bar, we will be given a charge. We're told that after getting 5 charges, we'll beat pal. Since this is an early version, the 3 minigames are different from the ones we've gotten used to. Let's quickly go over the 3 new ones. The first game requires us to match up 3 rows of shapes. Pretty easy, but trust me, with how stressful this night gets, even something as simple as this task can become a nightmare. The second game requires us to move Percy through a maze. This one is my favorite as it was always the least stressful for me to complete. The third game makes me want to get bucked by a fucking horse, however. This game requires you to catch a number of fish. This game is only stressful because of how long it takes. When you press space, your line will slowly drop to the bottom of the screen and then slowly come all the way back up. I hate this game so much. Along with that, all of the antagonists are different on this night, so throw all the knowledge you've memorized thus far out the fucking window. As the night goes on, more characters will be added to the night, but rather than explain exactly when each character is introduced in order, I'll just pretend like they're all active right out of the gate, like they would be at the end of the night, and explain them one by one. It makes most sense to talk about the pal Percy that we created first. In the closet, there are these 2 monitors. Occasionally, these monitors will tell you to find me. This is Pal Percy giving you direct orders. When you see this message, you have to open up your camera and find which room Percy is in. When you do, you will see him showing you a toy. You will then have to go to one of the other cameras to find whichever specific toy he showed. Once you find it and click on it, his attack is over. This alone is stressful enough, but we are just getting started. Next, let's talk about this stupid fucking little Percy. He has two different attacks. Let's go over his most simple one first. In the closet, you can see these two rolling carts. At any time, you can drag them out. If the little Percy appears, you have to use the cart that's on whatever side he's on and slam it into him, which literally kills it, so I guess there's just multiple of these fucks. His second attack thankfully has a cue. You'll be able to tell he's attacking because your vision will turn to horseshit. When it does, you have to find him on the cameras and stare at him. If you don't, he will disable your ability to move the rolling carts. I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea what this next enemy is, but occasionally you will see and hear banging on either side of the closet. When you do, you have to hold the rolling cart in front of said wall until the banging stops. We're not done yet. Don't worry, there's still way more to keep track of. By the way, did I tell you that there's a time limit this time? Yeah. If you don't complete the minigames on the PAL fast enough, the PAL itself will fucking kill you. This game will not give my nuts a second to breathe, just constant quaking for those poor little guys.
Trust me, when you fire this game up, your little fucking nuts are gonna start quaking, buddy. Your little nuts are gonna be quaking.
But that's still not enough for this game, no! Let's make it even more stressful. These little tiny pals the game calls roaches will climb out of the hole in the ceiling, and will sometimes show up in your vision. When they do, you have to drag them quickly to the bottom of your screen to throw them away. If you don't, you fucking die. Do you think we're done? Yeah? Well, you're fucking wrong. Not yet. The Pal Percy that we substituted for Percy's battery will sometimes crawl out of him and go to one of the corner rooms. Thank God he gives a sound cue for when he does this. When he does, you'll have to open your camera and find which room he's in and shock him. This night is so fucking loud that half of the time I missed his sound cue. I died more to this guy than anyone else on this night. Still not done yet, there's even more. At some points in the night, Percy will charge full speed at your door. When he does, you have to hold the door closed until he stops banging on it. And finally, that's it. After getting all 5 charges, we finally beat the game. Psych, fucking idiot. Pal is really mad, and you're forced to get one last charge, while even more mechanics are thrown at you on top of what you already have to deal with. Now, if you look at those screens again in the closet, sometimes Percy's stupid face will appear. When it does, all you have to do is click on it. Don't forget, this is on top of every other mechanic I've just explained, as well as you still having to do those minigames and that stupid fish one that takes 12 years to complete. Ready for another goddamn mechanic? I sure am. Again, our genius battery solution will occasionally come into the closet and take up about 80% of our screen. When he does, we have to play a quick minigame with him. He shows 3 cups and puts a ball under one of them. The cups shuffle around, very fucking slowly, and we have to pick the cup the ball is under, and then he'll go away. Again, this is on top of everything else we have to deal with. And once you get this final charge, do you think the game's over? Nope. Instead, the game says, fuck you. Survive for 60 more seconds as we increase the difficulties on the animatronics by about 136,000%. Lamau, sick idiot. But after those 60 seconds, it's over. And that's really it this time. I promise. This night took up, I'm not joking, about 50% of my playtime in this game. Holy shit, it's so fucking hard. I actually almost gave up, but thankfully, I got over the major salt I was throwing and beat it. If you want to watch me get pretty salty at this section, again, you can see my full playthrough on Dxtr Black. After finishing, Pal Percy comes to the door and tells us that we can be his best friend forever. Nick says... And then Pal gets all pissy and says he's gonna kill us. But before he can, a wrecking ball slams through the wall, which knocks Pal out of Percy's body. With Pal no longer having a body to control, he's pretty useless and lies on the floor like a sad sack of lard. Our boss calls us over as the building gets demolished and the game finally comes to a close. I have to say that this game is probably the best FNAF fan game I've seen in recent years. I'm pretty sure that now you can understand why I say it feels more FNAF inspired than a FNAF game. Because this game is so much more than just that. This game tells a great and captivating story, it has amazing 2D art, and a great and pretty large team behind it. It's so clear that an enormous amount of thought and care went into this game, and I appreciate it so much. Even though I think this game gets way too difficult way too quickly at the end, I'm honestly glad that it chose such a drastic approach. It's so different compared to what we usually get, and I love that the final fight is an entirely new gameplay loop. It's so creative, unique, and innovative, and I can't give enough praise to the devs. As of right now, I'm actually going to put this game just over Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese's as my current favorite FNAF fan game of all time. If you have any suggestions of FNAF fan games I may like more, definitely let me know. You can either put it in the comments, or you can go to the link in the description, follow me on Twitter, and tell me there. Before I go, have you ever played a game that was so good you wanted to play it again? Have you ever found a game dev whose games were so finely crafted you wanted to play every one they've ever made? Now, here's a crazy question. Have you ever played a game that was so utterly disappointing, bad, and a waste of time that you'd honestly, and I do mean honestly, would rather play Garten of Banban? Well, I have. I just did, actually, and I need to talk about it. I literally cannot help myself, and I bet you know the game I'm talking about, and maybe you even like it. This video is being made to explain why you shouldn't. The game I'll be talking about today is Five Nights at Candy's 2. You might be asking, why are you covering the second game in a series when you haven't even made a video about the first one? Well, I'll be honest with you, the first one is criminally mediocre at best, but if you guys want, I'll cover that one too. I just remembered this second game and remembered how unmemorable it was. So let's dive right into the most boring and mind-numbing Five Nights at Freddy's game ever made. Five Nights at Candy's 2 begins with us getting a text message from someone. That someone is not named, but we're told that we lost a bet, and because of that, we'll have to spend 5 nights in an abandoned factory again. Note that this person says, again, which would lead one to believe that we've had to spend 5 nights here before. And let me tell you, when there are killer animatronics somewhere, you survive 5 nights there, and then agree to a bet where the loser has to go there again, I guarantee you're not taking that bet and you're not going there again. So I have a theory about our player. They're brain dead. That has to be it, because no one else on Earth would be that stupid. Anyways, then we get slingshotted into the first night, and that means I'm plagued with the burden of telling you about the worst part of this game: playing the game. Instead of being in an office, we're in the middle of a hallway. Why? Because we're the king of making bad decisions. There are several rooms with only one entrance, but we instead choose to sit in the one room in the building that has about 6 fucking entrances, so our chances of living are as small as possible. It's also a good idea to mention that this hallway we're in is darker than the abyss, so seeing is impossible, but don't worry. We came prepared with the worst possible form of light that we could possibly think of. An old-ass camera that has a flash. Again, remember, we've been here before, for 5 nights, and we came back with a terrible form of lighting, even knowing how fucking dark it is. Brain dead. I will continue to emphasize this. Brain dead. Do we have a camera system? I hear you asking. Of course we do. Is it good? I hear you asking. Not even a little bit. Looking at the camera, you'll see a bunch of phone symbols. For some reason, almost every room in this building has a phone in it. Now remember that this building is supposed to be a factory. Why would there be a phone in every room in a factory? Have you ever worked in a factory? Let me tell you, factories are some of the loudest buildings on Earth. I would say it'd probably be quieter to work at a nuclear testing ground than it would be to work in a factory. On top of that, because of how loud factories are, most will have you wearing earplugs, so I guarantee you that nobody who's working in this factory would ever in a billion years be able to hear any of these phones ringing. But let's stop being literal and talk about why they're here. Similar to Five Nights at Freddy's 2, there are no doors. So how do you keep the animatronics from fingering your butthole? Well, we use the phones to lure them around the building, just like the Balloon Boy laugh from Five Nights at Freddy's 3. The key difference between this system and the system from FNAF 3 is, where the laughing system from FNAF 3 is good, the phone system from Five Nights at Candy's 2 fucking isn't. Let me explain. So in FNAF 3, you can use the Balloon Boy laugh in whatever room you want, and Springtrap will move to that room as long as he's in a room that is adjacent to it. Makes sense. In Five Nights at Candy's 2, you can use the phone in whatever room you want, but animatronics will only move to it if they're in the main hall where you are, and the reason given is the only room that they can hear the phone in is the main hall. Please, tell me how that makes any sense at all. Even if an animatronic is directly next to the room you use the phone in, they can't fucking hear it. But if they're in the main hallway and you use a phone in the furthest possible corner of the room 847 meters away, they'll jump on that shit. That makes no sense. Now you might be wondering, what happens when they get to the room of the phone you rang? Good question. They fucking disable it. Great. Now I have a question. Why are they going after the phone? It's a phone. Who cares? In Five Nights at Freddy's 3, the reason Springtrap went after the Balloon Boy call was because it sounded like a child, and Springtrap had pedophobia, unlike Dr. Disrespect. But this is just a phone. What reason do the animatronics have to attack this phone? I actually have a theory about that. Because the phone call ring is the most annoying sound on the face of the planet. Don't believe me? This is what it sounds like. Isn't that the worst? Get ready to hear that for your whole playthrough, because it's the main fucking mechanic of the goddamn game. I still haven't even mentioned what happens on night 1. So to start, there's no phone calls. Thank God. If I had to hear the phone ring even one additional time, I think I'd rip an infant in half. And the only animatronic that's active on night 1 is Cindy. And let me tell you, she's got hips like Judy Hopps, I'm not even gonna lie to you. Cindy is pretty boring overall. She just moves around. Call phones and make her move, mazel tov. But let me tell you, she moves at about Mach 20. You'll call a phone, causing her to leave the hall, and within about 10 seconds, she's already back into the hallway again. So you get to hear the oh-so-good sound of the phone again and again and again. I love life. Just kidding. No, I don't. This game does something pretty interesting. Once you beat a night, you'll get a minigame. Night 1's minigame has you play as Chester the chimpanzee. In it, you walk around what I assume is the building from the first game. You walk down into the office, grab a key, and unlock what I'm guessing is a back room. However, we don't get to see what's inside before the minigame ends. Cool, I guess. Anyways, let's move on to Night 2. Night 2 introduces a new animatronic, that being Chester. Remember him? You should. I just talked about him quite literally about 15 seconds ago, so I hope you would. Chester has a mechanic more unique than Cindy's, so that's good at least. Chester will start going quite literally apeshit on one of the vents in a random room. Can you guess how to deal with him? Can you? I'll wait. Ding ding ding! We have a winner! You fucking use the fucking phones to fucking scare the fucker away. God, fuck, I can't stand the phones. I'm gonna shart and then I'm gonna piss on it. Fuck, I'm sorry, I need to relax. I've been seeing a psychiatrist and he says we're making great progress. However, there was this one time his phone rang during a meeting and I ripped the couch in half. So, that set us back a little bit. Anyways, once you use the phone, Chester will run away like a bitch. If you don't use the phone fast enough, he'll climb through the vents and kill you. Very easy mechanic overall, but when mixed with the fact that when a phone is being called, you can't call another one, that's when it starts to get hard. Because you'll send Cindy to another room, and then directly after, Chester will start pounding on a vent in another room. Fuck me. Now I have to wait 30 seconds to use a phone again, and in that time, Chester has already tied me up, looking at me up and down and shit. But once we get through Night 2, we can move on to the post-Night 2 minigame. In this minigame, we play as the Penguin. I looked up his name, and his name is just the Penguin. Very creative, guys, great work. In this minigame, we're tasked with picking up the remains of Chester and stuffing them into a box. Let's imagine that all of these animatronics are friends for a second, okay? That's super fucked up. Yeah, go pick up your best friend that's been ripped into fucking pieces and just throw him in a box. No funeral, no burial, just toss him in there. I feel bad for the Penguin. First he's got no name, and now he's on crime scene cleanup. Trying our best not to think about it, we move on to Night 3. Night 3 introduces two new animatronics, Candy and the Penguin. Candy is boring as fuck, literally just doing the exact same thing that Cindy does, which makes you wonder, what was even the point? The Penguin, however, does do something pretty interesting. The Penguin can randomly appear on any camera, If you look at him for too long, he will disable your cameras for a while, making you unable to look at them, retroactively making it impossible to call the phones, which is arguably a good thing, because I'd rather put a gun in my mouth than listen to the phone ring again. Now, I'm gonna pause real quick and ask you guys, does this mechanic sound a little familiar to you? Well, that's because it's quite literally just Balloon Boy's mechanic from Five Nights at Freddy's 3, with borderline zero differences. Ah yes, originality, how uncommon you are. But hey, it is better than Candy, to be fair, because the frequency in which I have to repeat myself in this script is making my ears ring. Ring. Hold the fucking phone over. Host Night 3 minigame time. Aren't you excited? You better be excited. In this minigame, we play as Blank. Our task here is to pick up 4 drawings. I would say that's irrelevant, but if you spend as much time as I do looking at and studying FNAF games, you'd know that Blank's purpose is to literally be drawn on by children, so this actually makes a little bit of sense. 3 of the drawings don't really mean dick, but there is one drawing I'd like to draw your attention to, only because it's the only thing in this game that I think is unsettling. A drawing of a sad kid with the text, "Where's Chester?" It's just unsettling because we know what happened to Chester, but this kid doesn't. It's a very small detail, but I have to do my best to find something positive in this dumpster fire of a game. After we collect all 4 drawings, it's time to move on to Night 4. Night 4 literally introduces no new animatronics. So we're just going to talk about the post-Night 4 minigame. I'm going to be honest with you guys because we're friends, pals, homies, some might even say buds. This minigame has no fucking purpose existing. You can tell that the devs just thought, oh fuck, I can't think of another minigame with substance, and then made this minigame. In this minigame, you play as Cindy, and your task is to walk down to the office, grab Candy's tie, and give it to him. That's it. You know, I can tell that this script is going to be shorter than I usually like them to be already, but when you give me 0 content to work with game, it makes it significantly more difficult to lengthen the script out so that the viewers have more fucking content. But I guess I'll just go fuck myself then, and we'll move on to Night 5. Night 5, thankfully, introduces a new animatronic for me to complain about, Blank. Technically, Blank can come in Night 4, it's just super unlikely, but we're not going to talk about that. Can you guys guess what Blank does? If you guessed the exact same fucking thing that Candy and Cindy do, you're fucking right. Why even try to make a mechanic that's interesting when you could just Control-C, Control-V code, right? That's so awesome. But as far as I can tell, Blank does at least do something different from Candy and Cindy. If you call the phone that's in the room he's in, he will disable it almost instantly, and that's about all that's different. Boring ass, dumbass, bitch, robot, bitch. You know, I really honestly wish I had more to talk about when it came to this game, but of course, it's a disappointment of a game, so I really don't. But we can talk about the post-Night 5 minigame. The post-Night 5 minigame actually has a lot of substance to it, so I thankfully actually have something to talk about. In this minigame, you play as Candy, and your goal is pretty unclear. As you wander around the building, you stumble into a room where you see police officers guarding the doors, with police lights flashing on the outside of the building. As you walk into the office, you see the corpse of what appears to be another police officer, and deep laughing can begin to be heard. As you continue to walk around the building, you'll notice that the door that Chester unlocked in the first minigame is now open. As you go to walk up to the door, 3 police officers bust the door down and tase the fuck out of Candy's plump ass. Isn't it crazy that this minigame has been more fun than the entirety of the rest of the game combined? God, you know, this should have been the game with absolutely nothing else, and I probably would have had more nice things to say about it. But let's move on to Night 6, because it's FNAF, so of course the title of the game is a lie. Night 6 removes every single animatronic we've seen so far, but adds 2 new ones, the rat and the cat. I'm sorry, did I say adds? I meant replacements, because these 2 animatronics literally add nothing new to the game. Both characters act the same way Candy and Cindy do, but the cat also has Chester's ability to pound on the vent, and the rat has the penguin's ability of forcing your cameras to reboot if you look at him for too long. Is this night good? Literally no. Is it unique? Literally no. Did I have a good time playing it? Literally no. Did I have a good time playing this game at all? Literally no. Am I having a good time writing this script? Kinda, I guess. There's only so much you can write about when the dev of the game shits in their hand and gives it to you with a sticky note attached that reads Five Nights at Candy's 2. But whatever. Post-Night 6 minigame time, I suppose. The Post-Night 6 minigame also has a lot to talk about. Hilariously more to talk about than the actual base game. This minigame starts with us playing as Old Candy, as we follow a Shadow Candy around the building. He leads us to an open door with a worker inside. As we approach this worker, he turns around and is rightfully frightened and tases the fuck out of us. Usually that's where these minigames would end, but we actually get to continue. Next, we're back in the body of Blank, with the task of picking up a bunch of pictures again, with the final picture being a drawing of Shadow Candy, and as the picture leaves our screen, we see Shadow Candy behind us and then he clanks Blank's cheeks. Bars. However, we're still not done playing this minigame. Next, we're back playing as Old Candy and again are tasked with following Shadow Candy around the building. We walk past a man in a black vest who looks very upset, and Shadow Candy leads us to the office where we find a crying child. As we walk up to the crying child, they get up and stop crying and prance out of the room all happy and shit. Continuing to follow Shadow Candy, he leads us back to the man in the black vest we saw earlier to find him grabbing the child we found by the head, based, and the child is crying. We walk up to the man and presumably bust it down freaky style with him and split him in half like a log. And that's the end of this minigame. I honestly appreciate this game doing something that at least feels like progress and understanding. However, that's where my critiques end for this game, because that's the fucking end of the game. Do you feel fucked? I feel fucked. This game just bent me over and fucked me. I spent a few hours playing this game, and what do I get? I get fucked in the ass by Five Nights at Candy's 2. No lube, raw, in the ass, fucked. I am not even remotely satisfied with this game. It did nothing good at all to make me appreciate it. Sure, it has its two interesting moments in the final two minigames, and sure, it has the secret animatronic that's kind of a baddie, but that's not even close enough to make me like it. Even looking at the time at which it came out, coming off the back of Five Nights at Candy's, one of the best FNAF fan games at that time, it still wasn't even good. It was just a shitty Five Nights at Freddy's 3 with a boring ass gameplay loop. Now, I'm not a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's 3 either. I think overall it's a pretty bad game, but it was original. This dog shit did what that dog shit did, but even more dog shit. I would rather put a toothpick under my toenail and kick a wall. I would rather play Moozy again. I would rather peel my own skin off and pour salt on it. I would rather watch old Markiplier and try not to cringe at how eccentric he was. This game had so much it could have done, and for some reason it just didn't. It had so many animatronics to work with, which could open the door to so many unique mechanics, but instead it chose to have all of them do the same thing, which just makes for an experience that is so catastrophically boring. The gameplay felt useless, the minigames felt useless, and the fucking phone call makes me want to strangle a baby deer. But let me know what you think. Do you think this game is actually a masterpiece, or have you realized that you were blinded by nostalgia? I'm super interested to see what you guys have to think. In the last video, I asked you guys if you thought Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic was going to be good or not, and my favorite comment was this one by Ryko Janes. They said that they thought the game was going to be dog shit, and sadly, I agree with that. I have no trust in Steelwool after seeing what they did with Security Breach. Those games were franchise ruining, and there's literally no arguing that. I don't have high hopes, but in the back of my mind, I do hope they prove me wrong.
I've covered a lot of games made by the developers in the Five Nights at Freddy's Fanverse initiative. I've covered the fantastic Joy of Creation made by Nixon, the famous Five Nights at Candy's by Emil Mako, and I've covered the gorgeous One Night at Flumpty's by Groomer Jonachrome. For the most part, I've enjoyed all of these games, but there is still one game in the initiative I have yet to cover: Pop Goes by Kane Carter. Another incredibly well-known FNAF fan game with a lot of people having a sweet spot for it. Today, I'm here to find out why. Stick around because I've got a lot to say about it. As mentioned, Pop Goes was created by Kane Carter and was released to the public on June 26, 2016. Immediately, it got a lot of recognition, with FNAF fan games definitely being popular at the time, but it was still new to find a game that remotely matched the quality of the originals. And Pop Goes 100% did. The game shares lore in continuity to the official Five Nights at Freddy's games. However, it does retcon everything FNAF 4 onwards, meaning in order to understand the lore, we have to think only about FNAF 1 through 3. With that key detail out of the way, let's get all around the cobbler's bench and right into Pop Goes. A lot of FNAF fan games like to have an opening cutscene, but not Pop Goes. This game will already get you on your toes by not even showing you the standard newspaper, just jumping right into night 1, wiping its balls all over my forehead. Fantastic. Something you'll notice immediately is the way that Pop Goes handles the office. It's honestly probably the coolest office I've ever seen come out of a FNAF game. It actually comes out of this game harder than you gooners come out of the closet. While in the office, which is hard to even call an office honestly, you will be able to look 360 degrees all around you, with 4 different directions to look in, all serving a different purpose. Although I will admit one of them doesn't really have any reason for existing, but we'll get into that later. Starting directly in front of us, we have our cameras, which are controlled by our phone, and some colorful buttons. Since this is where we'll be spending most of our time, I'll talk about this a bit later. Turning to our left, we can actually see one of the animatronics, and it's at this moment it becomes apparent that we are not in an office, but are rather just in a giant-ass room in the restaurant. This character's name is Blake the Badger, but he's harmless on this night, so as I've already said multiple times, we'll talk about him later. Turn left again to look behind us and we'll be able to see the actual fucking stage where all the characters are. Holy shit, my butthole just puckered and my penis just retracted up inside of my body. We are literally constantly next to almost every animatronic in the entire game. You might think that'll make just about everything in this game useless since they're already pretty much free to grab up on us, but as you'll learn throughout this video, these guys have a very, how should I say this, retarded thought process. Finally, turning once more to the left, we can see a window to the parking lot with a bird character standing outside. We'll talk about what he does later, but for right now, I want to talk about what actual purpose this window serves. On the bottom of the screen, you will see a panic meter. Naturally, throughout the night, it will rise, and looking at animatronics will cause this panic meter to rise faster. In order to make it decrease, you'll need to look to the right at the window. I guess looking outside makes you remember how much you enjoy touching grass. Just kidding. Being outside is scary, and it's summer right now, so it's really fucking hot. I'd rather die than go out there. Fun fact, as I'm writing this script, I'm not wearing a shirt because of how blazing hot it is, even though it's only 9:45 p.m. What kind of bullshit is this? Why is it so goddamn hot where I live? This shit is ass. Oh, and by the way, as I'm recording this, it's currently 11:48 p.m. and it's somehow gotten even hotter. Also, by the way, put your dick back in your pants. You're not going to see me shirtless. And stop imagining it too. I already know how weird you fucking freaks are. Yes, I read the comments. Behave. Anyways, if your panic meter increases all the way, you'll be unable to do literally anything. That includes turning to look in any direction, and Pop Goes will very quickly dig in your butt. Want to hear a really cool fact about this? Turns out I'm actually the most retarded person on the face of the planet Earth. The phone guy explicitly describes that if we're feeling panicked to look outside. I swear to you, I had no fucking idea that the window to our right was a window to the outside. I knew it was a window, but for some reason I couldn't tell that it was to the outside of the building. I thought it was just another room inside the building, and I think the reason I thought that was because the animatronic could be seen through it, and I didn't think that they'd place an animatronic outside. But that still doesn't make sense, because what I thought you had to do was look at camera 10, which is a camera out in the parking lot. While this does seem to decrease your panic very slowly, I thought it was going to be impossible to beat this game because of how slowly it dropped. Again, keep in mind, I can see the crow animatronic in this camera, and it took borderline until night 3 for me to notice that yes, that window is outside, and by looking out of it, my panic will decrease a fuck ton faster. Looks like the panic meter don't exactly work very well though, bro. Like, look, I keep fucking jumping back up and shit. What am I supposed to do with this panic meter, bro? It like doesn't go down consistently at all. Dude, this is bullshit. What the fuck are you supposed to do? That's not possible. What the hell is that bullshit? What? What's the point of turning except to see? Like, what's the point of this? Like this area. Wait, that's the... Oh! I'm retarded. This is a fucking parking lot. He means literally. Guys, I'm actually fucking retarded. Holy shit, guys, I'm a fucking idiot. Oh my god, that has to be actually the fucking stupidest thing I've ever done in my whole life. So, with that out of the way, let's talk about our camera system. Looking at it at a first glance may seem a bit intimidating, but this game actually does a fantastic job at slowly introducing new mechanics. It's actually probably better at this than any other FNAF game I've ever played before. Let's just focus on what needs to be focused on during night 1 and ignore everything else until it becomes relevant. Obviously, you can switch through the cameras like any FNAF game, and the cameras in this game use no power. In fact, this game doesn't even have power to begin with, which I think is something we can all appreciate. The only other thing on the cameras we need to worry about is the room shutdown button. This button does exactly what you think it does, temporarily shuts down the power to a specific room. You'll notice you can only use this button on cameras that have this weird device on them, and if you can't tell what this is, it's a 3D printer. Why are there 3D printers here? Well, canonically, I'm pretty sure it's because the kids that come to the restaurant can print out their own animatronics or something like that. I don't really know. I was more focused on the phone guy talking about his boring ass life. I wasn't really paying attention to the actual story of the game very much. Where these 3D printers come into play during gameplay is when we talk about our boy, Pop Goes the Weasel. Yes, we are actually introducing the main character of the game on night 1, something quite a few FNAF games don't like to do until later nights. Pop Goes will leave his stage and head towards any room with a 3D printer, which by the way you can actually turn around and watch him leave via walking through the very room you're sitting in. Remember how I said the characters in this game make some pretty retarded decisions? Yeah, this is one of them. If Pop Goes' goal is to kill me, why doesn't he just do it? He's literally directly behind me. It would not be hard at all. In fact, the only time he does kill you is when your panic meter gets too high. So, if he doesn't kill you himself, how is he a threat? Great question, and one I'm going to answer because, no shit, it'd be a pretty shitty review if I didn't explain anything. Once Pop Goes enters a room with a 3D printer, he will attempt to print out a piece of a character called the Black Rabbit. It's literally just Shadow Bonnie from Five Nights at Freddy's 2. In order to stop him, you will have to shut down the room he's in before he prints it. This will make the printer turn off and will make him leave to go find another one. After a few seconds, the power to the room will automatically come back on, so you don't have to worry about losing sight of the room forever. Pop Goes is completely relentless. The moment you shut down one room, it won't be long until he attacks another, which actually leads to a constant pressure gameplay loop. Typically something I would find unfun, but again, this game actually does it incredibly well, and I think it has everything to do with how well it introduces new mechanics. But back to Pop Goes. If you don't shut down the room fast enough, he will print out a piece of the Black Rabbit and walk back to the office. If you turn around, you can actually catch him placing the piece he printed out on the table behind you. If he prints out every piece, the Black Rabbit will become active and immediately kill you. I personally never died to the Black Rabbit, which goes to show either how easy this game is or how much fun I had playing it that I was able to find a rhythm. I should briefly mention how the phone calls in this game work, since they're also quite a bit different from most I've seen. Unfortunately, the phone guy is British. I know that should be given a warning in and of itself, but let's try to move past that tragedy. After getting the typical phone guy spiel, you're given 3 options for things to ask him, and whatever you choose will actually give you some branching dialogue, giving a small bit of replayability to each night. One option usually elaborates on a mechanic, another usually does some lore dumping, and the final is typically just some silly fun. Small details, I'm telling you. They're what make me appreciate games the most. But after beating night 1 in typical FNAF game fashion, we're tossed into a post-night 8-bit minigame to do some lore dumping. Except this game actually does it a little different than other games do. Each minigame takes place in the same area. This weird red maze-ass area. I have no idea what the floor is supposed to be made of, but let's ignore that. In this minigame, we play as Stone the Crow. This is the same character that stands outside of your window in the parking lot, by the way. Each character you play as in this minigame will have a different path you need to follow, and a different item you can interact with. This is the route you need to take as Stone. Following this path will lead you to a balloon boy chained up. Once you see him, the minigame ends. However, if you want to get one of the special endings in this game, there is something you need to do first. In each minigame, you will be able to find a secret character named Simon. Once you find him, you will be transformed into what I'm going to call a purified version of the character. Once purified, if you head over to the Balloon Boy, instead of the game just ending, you'll actually be able to free him from his shackles. This will happen in every minigame, just with different paths and characters. Additionally, if you interact with Balloon Boy's hat before you reach his room, a short cutscene will play. And by cutscene, I mean a single fucking drawing. But hey, that's cool, I suppose. As far as I'm aware, looking at these drawings doesn't aid in getting you a special ending, just some fun extra lore to find. Night 2 introduces 2 new characters, except they both do the exact same thing at the exact same time in the exact same way, so they're basically only one character. Those characters being Saffron and Sarah the Squirrels, aka this game's gooning material. Get your Jergens out, or just use your hand if you have foreskin because your parents don't love you. Saffron and Sarah, like Pop Goes, can be seen on stage directly behind you. They too would prefer to do something incredibly complicated and retarded rather than just blow your back out from behind like any normal attacker would do in this situation. They introduce a new mechanic, your vents. As I'm sure you could guess from me saying that, these two travel through your vents in an attempt to drop down on you and sit on your face, which is exactly why I never stop them. Anyways, you can toggle your vent camera on a majority of cameras around the building. Think of the map as a big roundabout these two have to go around. They start in camera 8, then go to 6, then 3, then 1, then 2, then 5, then 7, and finally arrive at your office. So you have plenty of time to stop them. But be warned, once they travel into a new vent, they will never go back under any circumstance. So really make sure you stay on top of them. Personally, I'm into femdoms, so I prefer to be on the bottom of them, but that's really not important. When you spot them in your vents, you must turn on your vent heater, which will cause lasers of all things to shoot down in the vent, blocking their path. The phone guy tells you that these lasers will stay on for 1 minute, except this game has a crazy twist, and the twist is that he fucking lied. The lasers actually only stay on for 9 seconds. Not 10, 9. Fuck me, I didn't want to see a nice round number anyways. Don't fret, you don't actually have to keep track and count in your head, as on your cameras a heat symbol will appear whenever your lasers are active, meaning that as long as you know how to use your eyes, you'll always be able to tell whether or not your lasers are on without constantly having to toggle vent to check. Kane could have easily not put this heat symbol in the game, and without changing any mechanics, it would have made it a fuckload more difficult. But Kane cares about video game balancing, and I really respect him for that. If the squirrels get all the way through the vent, they will appear in the vent directly above your head. If you look up, you'll be able to see them peeking down at you. Much like Pop Goes, these girls actually never attack you. Instead, what they do is snatch up your phone like a frat boy snatches up Easy Cooter. Obviously, without your phone, you won't be able to switch cameras, meaning Pop Goes will be free to build up the black rabbit and you'll be done for. However, it's much more likely that your rapidly climbing panic meter will get you killed first. Anyways, on to the post-night minigame. This time we play as Saffron and we're tasked with finding Toy Freddy. Very similar to last night, we can find Simon, become purified, and free Toy Freddy from his shackles. Oh yeah, and additionally can view another picture with some loud-ass music playing as well. Lore or something! Also, by the way, here's the path you need to take. Night 3 introduces one new threat, Blake the Badger. However, I first want to talk about a threat I haven't mentioned thus far, Stone the Crow. He actually has 2 different attacks, one that becomes active early in the game and one that doesn't become active until a later night. Both of his attacks are actually the most threatening and annoying out of any character in the entire game. Crazy how one character can have multiple ass-erupting problems that I hate. His early attack has him just be an annoying prick. He will occasionally appear on your cameras and block your entire view. This prevents you from seeing Pop Goes, which is obviously not great. But if that wasn't enough, when you look at him, your panic meter actually increases way faster than normal. And want to know the coolest part? The higher your panic, the more commonly he appears on your cameras. That's a fucking wombo combo if I've ever seen one before. Holy shit. Leave my poor anus alone. It's had enough. In order to make him stop appearing on the cameras, you obviously have to lower your panic. Ironically, by staring at him out in the parking lot. Let's just pretend like that makes sense. Anyways, now I can talk about Blake the Badger, a character who is literally just fun. As I mentioned previously, Blake can be seen directly to your left. This, by the way, is the direction that is pretty much useless to look in. Along with seeing Blake, you can also see the door to the server room in this direction. If you look this way long enough, you'll see Blake walk into this server room. You can view the server room on your cameras where you can see Blake present. This camera is one of the reasons why watching him move real time doesn't matter, because you'll be checking the cameras consistently anyways. Blake has you play Simon Says. Hey, Simon! Like the guy in the minigames. I wonder if that's a coincidence. Once Blake is in the server room, he will set the monitor inside to a certain color. On your desk, you will see 5 different buttons, each with a differently colored circle on them. What you need to do is click the circle that's the same color as the monitor in the server room, and then press the Blake button next to your monitor to call him over so we can check if you chose correctly. When you call him, by the way, he will literally come right up to you. If you turn to the left, you will see him staring right at you, which kind of startled me the first time I saw it. If you got the colors right, he won't attack you and will go back to minding his own business. Get it wrong and you're obviously fucked. Want to hear another reason why looking to the left is not worth it? Well, if Blake happens to be there because he's checking on your color, if you look at him, your panic meter will increase drastically. So there is literally never a good reason to look to your left, ever, so just don't. Night 3's post-night minigame has you play as Sarah. I'm sure you can already guess what you need to do. Find Simon, become fearified, and find my wife Toy Chica and free her from her shackles, and then let her use those shackles on me so she can have her way with me. But let's leave Chica and I alone while you guys move on to Night 4. Oh yeah, and here's the path. Night 4's new threat is Stone the Crow. While yes, I've already established his camera blocking threat, that's not the only threat he has, as I've already mentioned. This is the night where his much more annoying problem arises. If you are to look out of the window for too long, Stone will turn his head towards you and, I'm not joking, make the most ear-piercing, skull-fucking degrading screech I've ever heard in my entire life. I'm not lying. It's actually the loudest noise in the whole game, and it scared the fuck out of me every single time I heard it. Oh, for fuck. My goddamn ears, bro. When he turns his head at you, your panic meter will increase faster than anything else that causes it to increase. Like, I'm talking fast as fuck. Usain Bolt type shit. Obviously, turning away will cause him to stop staring, and you'll be able to look at him again to decrease your panic that he so rudely increased. This does bring up an interesting dilemma and will force you to come up with a new strategy when playing. You know that looking out the window for too long will cause him to look at you, but you also need to keep your panic empty so he doesn't appear on the cameras. So you need to figure out a proper way to both deal with Popgoes, the squirrels, and Blake, while also looking out of the window frequently enough to not cause Stone to look at you, while also keeping your panic meter completely empty so he doesn't appear on the cameras. Because once your pattern breaks, it will be very difficult and stressful to get yourself back on track. Night 4's post-night minigame has you play as Blake. Here's the path you have to follow to get to Mangle, but remember to find Simon and purify yourself first. I'll never understand the attraction some people have to Mangle. I don't even see how sex with her would be fun. She's a fucked up mess of wires. Even if you could figure out how to get it done, you'd borderline have to be a contortionist in order to not get yourself injured while doing the deed. Anyways, on to Night 5. Night 5 doesn't introduce any new threat, just being a harder version of Night 4, so I'll use this time to talk about Simon and how he appears in the nights. That's right, Simon himself does appear in each night, however, I never saw him throughout my playthrough, which you can find on my second channel, Dxtr Black, and that's because of how specific finding him is. Each night he will appear in a certain room at a certain time, only for a few seconds, which is why I never saw him. When you find him, you will need to click on one of your Simon Says buttons that corresponds to the color of his eyes. When you do, he will say something to you. I guess it being Simon Says wasn't a coincidence after all. On Night 1, he will appear in the arcade's vent camera at the 526th second of the night. That's right, it's actually that specific. His eye color will be red and he will say the following.
Simon Says.
On Night 2, he'll appear in the birthday room camera at the 116th second. His eyes will be pink and he'll say the following.
Keep finding me. I'll tell you everything.
On Night 3, he'll appear in the parking lot camera on the 472nd second. His eyes will be blue and he'll say this.
Oh, brother. He must be so fond of him.
On night 4, he'll appear in the staff room at the 342nd second of the night. His eyes will be yellow and he'll say the following.
Do you think you know who he is? The truth is behind this door.
And in night 5, he'll appear in the hallway camera at the 273rd second of the night. His eyes will be green and he will say this.
He doesn't want to remember. We can help him tomorrow.
Overall, a pretty cool bit of extra lore in a very fun and interactive way. Again, I'm in love with little details like this. Also, here's another fun fact. If you stare at Simon's screen in the extras menu for too long, your game will crash, so that's pretty cool. Anyways, onto the post-night minigame. Here you play as Pop Goes. Here's the path you have to take to find the worst FNAF character ever designed, Toy Bonnie. And as always, don't forget to find Simon and purify yourself. God, I fucking hate Toy Bonnie. He's the main reason why Five Nights at Freddy's 2 sucks as much dick and balls as it does. I know people have found a way to make 1020 mode not random, but fuck you. He's still a bag of dicks. Night 6 once again adds no new threats, just being the hardest non-custom night in the entire game, really amping up the game's difficulty. I want to talk about two things during this night. This game does probably the best job I've seen at making a challenging experience without being frustrating, janky, or awkward. This night is definitely hard, requiring you to be precise with your mouse, quick with your thinking, and requiring a lot of nerve control throughout. But never throughout my playthrough did I feel like the game was unfair or that there was too much RNG involved. This game is a perfect balance of challenging and engaging. I've truly never seen another FNAF game pull it off as well as this game has. Additionally, Simon can be found on this night as well. I didn't talk about it last night because the way you find him in this night is without a doubt one of the coolest things in the whole game. He'll appear in the station on the 273rd second of the night. You might be wondering what the station is, and the station is literally the room you are sitting in. Simon will appear on the table directly behind you. He leans in so close you can feel his breath on the nape of your neck. It might turn some people on, but it personally makes me feel a bit uncomfortable. Anyways, his eyes will be white and he'll say the following.
He wants to save her, and I will make his wish come true. Thank you, Strings.
If you've done everything correctly in the post-night minigame so far, you'll be put into the 6th night post-night minigame where you play as the Black Rabbit. Finding Simon, you'll realize he looks different, appearing to be glitching as the purple guy, and upon purifying, you seem to become Spring Bonnie, implying that either Simon has been William Afton the whole time, or that Pop Goes has been trying to construct William Afton the whole time. Continuing forward, you find a man and kill him. This man being Fritz, or Jeremy Fitzgerald, the phone guy who's been talking to us throughout the nights. Hold the fuck up. The phone guy has been Jeremy Fitzgerald, aka the person we play as in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Again, keep in mind that anything that happens in the official FNAF games from the 4th game and beyond are not canon in Pop Goes. Throughout the game, Fritz talks about an accident he had at Freddy's, never going into specific detail as to what it was. I'm going to take a guess he was either the Bite of 87 victim or the Bite of 83 victim, since he also mentioned that he used to work for Freddy's. You might think that it can't be the Bite of 87 because we already know that that was a child, and Fritz mentions that the accident happened when he was a teenager. But again, remember that we learned it was a child in Five Nights at Freddy's 4, which isn't canon to this game, so it could be up in the air. If you have a better idea, or you know I'm wrong as fuck, let me know in the comments. I love reading your guys' corrections. During the last night of this game, Fritz asks us a question. Would we forgive someone who did something terrible, given that we've known the person for a long time? Then, instead of getting to ask him a question at the end of the call like every other night, we're instead only given the option of selecting yes or no, with no response given after our answer. I'm going to assume that this hypothetical question is about William Afton after he did what he did to the children. Fritz mentions earlier in the call that he feels like William probably had a good reason to do what he did. Fritz knew William and didn't want to believe he killed the kids with no good reason. I think he asks us that question in an attempt to make himself not feel so alone in wanting to forgive him. After killing Fritz in the final minigame, one last cutscene plays out. We're back in our office and we watch as Simon approaches us and stares deep into our eyes, making us fall in love. No, I'm kidding. I mean, he does stare at us, but I highly doubt it's for that reason. And with that, we get the grave ending. As far as I'm aware, this game's version of a true ending. And that's where Pop Goes comes to a close. Overall, I actually love this game. Originally going into it, I was nervous that this video was going to be another hit piece like Jolly, but I was actually very pleasantly surprised when it turned out to be a very enjoyable experience. I truly think that this game has the best difficulty balancing of any FNAF game I've ever played. Each mechanic feels solid and has great synergy with every other mechanic, without having the game feel unfair and overwhelming while still providing a satisfying challenge. The story isn't too convoluted, and there's not a lot of garbage hoops to jump through to be able to experience it, which for someone like me, who dreads learning the lore in games, can really appreciate. Because of all of these reasons, I'm placing Pop Goes in my top 10 favorite FNAF games of all time. I honestly really enjoyed my time with this game, and I highly recommend all of you give it a try. You won't regret it. Also, I'm aware that Pop Goes is getting a remake, and I'm incredibly excited to review that when it comes out. But what do you think? Do you agree with me? Or is Pop Goes actually fucking doo-doo ass garbage and I have no idea what I'm talking about? Let me know in the comments below. As of writing this, my Jolly video hasn't come out, so I don't have a question to pull a favorite comment from, and I need to get this video to my editor. What do you think is the most underrated Five Nights at Freddy's fan game ever made? A series that is so amazing you'd think it'd be talked about everywhere, but when you go to check, it seems like nobody has ever even heard of it. The game we'll be covering today is one of those games for me, and when doing research for this video, especially when talking about the lore, I found it incredibly difficult to piece it together because of how little information there seems to be about it. But rest assured, I think I've got it figured out. The game we'll be covering today is Project Readjusted, a FNAF fan game with one of my favorite stories of all time. Sit back, relax, and let's jump into this amazing trilogy together. The first big change I noticed in Project Readjusted from most FNAF games is the way the phone calls were handled. Rather than having the phone calls take place inside the game, this game instead chooses to have us listen to the phone call before we even load into the office, instead giving us a still image to look at showing the characters we will be seeing on each night. I'll admit it's unique, however, I think I'd personally prefer to be able to mess around with the cameras, mechanics, and so on while the phone guy is talking, and just have to make sure nobody moves while that's happening. I feel that's a much better way to utilize the first phone call in a FNAF game. The first phone call doesn't give out any meaningful information, really just going over how the main character Buster works, but it's my job to explain the mechanics, so I don't think I'll be letting the depressed sounding Wei Ji do that for me. Upon loading into the office, you may feel just a little cramped, and that's normal. This office is teeny tiny, like much smaller than most FNAF offices I've seen in my days. Obviously, we have a door to the office, because if we didn't, I'd question how we even got into the room in the first place. However, the interesting thing about this door is that it doesn't close. Oh, Dexter, does it not have an actual door? Like, it's just a doorway? No, there's a door. Our character just for some reason chooses not to close it. But instead of thinking that's because we're playing in the shoes of a dumbass, I'm instead going to assume it's because we're playing in the shoes of a badass who isn't scared of anything. We also, of course, have our cameras, which are very interesting to say the least. To start, they have two modes, lights on mode and useless mode. Because, as I'm sure you could have guessed, if the lights are off, you can't see anything. I know, groundbreaking. You'll also notice you have a camera stability percentage. What does that mean? Well, as the name suggests, it reads the percentage of your camera stability. I'm sorry, I'll stop talking like that. While on your cameras, the stability will quickly decrease. Putting the camera down will cause it to quickly increase back up. If it drops down to 0, you're gonna have to wait a while before being able to use it again. So, what about that Buster fella I mentioned earlier? How does he work? Great question, viewer of questionable stench. Buster is as basic as a character can get. I'm sure you could probably guess what he does, but it's my job to tell you. Buster will move around through the cameras with the goal of getting to your office. Once there, he'll peek his little head through the door. Using this comically large blue button on the wall of your office, you can shine a light into the doorway, revealing he has the teeth of a British person. Hold this light on him for long enough and he'll go away. Simple sugar. After night 1, we get a short cutscene. You guys seem to like the narration I did in my Maggie's video, So instead of just summarizing what happened like I would usually do, I figured, why not narrate this as well? Hey, it's been a long time, you and me. We finally met ends on a good note for now. I'm only implying that our experience will be better. Now, there is something I need to tell you. I know I'm jumping to conclusions without explaining who I am, but bear with me. There is something inside this diner. Just maybe put on some type of gig to make some fool believe you to make them work here. Maybe that person will lure that thing out. I'll tell you more tomorrow, but for now, let's begin to go inside. Let's take the back alley, as it's less noticeable. Come along, we only have 5 days. Sounds like someone's trying to dupe us and use us as bait. That's not very kind, vaguely barbaric. But whatever, we're already working here. I guess it's just in our best interest to not die. Moving on to night 2, you can quickly take a little nap because the phone guy takes a billion years to talk about the new character this night adds, and ramble about some arcade machines. The new character added on this night is Old Buster. At least, that's the name that would make sense. However, this character's name is actually Redeemer. Quite literally, being an older Buster model, I can't quite wrap my head around why they chose to name him in the way they did. Redeemer makes use of your vents, something I've neglected to mention thus far. You can't really see it, but the vent is to the right of your office behind the door, so just out of sight. Redeemer does whatever he damn well pleases until he eventually decides to enter the vent. When he does, an obvious sound cue will play letting you know he's entered. Once he reaches your office, he'll dive in. When he's in your office, it's very important that you don't look at him. However, since the office we're in is so small, it may prove very difficult to just look away from him. So you'll have to be looking at your cameras while he's in your office instead. I guess Redeemer has the mindset of, if I can't see him, he can't see me. Stupid ass robot. This, however, may bring up a possible conflict. If your camera stability is too low by the time Redeemer gets to your office, it's safe to say that you wouldn't have a very good time. But luckily for us, at this point in the game, checking the cameras is entirely useless. So as of right now, this shouldn't be a problem. Hey, so I was looking around in these garbage bins and found a key. It's great, I know, the low effort put into protecting this place. Anyways, remember that idea I had, well, a few minutes ago? I got this one guy on my phone now. His name is Hayden Simmons. Pretty dumb fellow. I bet he doesn't even know of this place. Probably a high school dropout or a kid desperate for some easy cash. Well, now let's venture inside this establishment and set up an office for our buddy. So, we know the name of our character, Hayden Simmons. Too bad his name is one of the rhyming Aiden names, probably the worst group of names anybody could have. That's besides the point though. It seems like the building we're working in isn't even supposed to have an office. It's clear something sinister is going on here, but we don't quite know what yet. Moving on to night 3, I'm going to spare you the details and have us skip the phone call because he explains what the newest character does in an amount of time that could be an entire video by itself. Night 3 introduces Ned. Ned is ugly, like ugly as sin. He's got a face not even a mother could love. Booger-ah, boy. He will try to make his way to your office via the long hallway in the building. Unlike Buster, he isn't a complete dumbass, so the light trick won't really work on him. What will work on him, however, is the replace machinery button that I've blatantly and purposefully ignored up until this point, because explaining it earlier really wouldn't have made a whole lot of sense, now would it? Ned has multiple stages in the hallway. Every time you use the replace machinery button, he will go back a stage. I'm sure you can figure out how this works. Push him back, wait for the button to recharge, push him back again, keep him away from your office, which would in turn keep him away from your genitals. Whoopity-doo. However, this does bring up the issue of us needing to use our cameras now. So in combination with Redeemer, Ned could end up being a big problem down the road. Alright, sorry for keeping you waiting, but I had to run back to my car to get a battery for my phone. It's pretty low percentage right now, but it'll last now. Hayden says he'll be able to work next week, which is great. We'll pay him around $150 for his work, I guess. Maybe it's considered a scam to him, but I don't care. He just said he's not a fan of night jobs, but will do it anyways, and he'll play on his phone. Like that's gonna go down well. Anyways, Let's head inside. The Wi-Fi better not be bad inside, I swear. Not much to note from this cutscene. We know we're getting criminally underpaid, and we know that playing on our phone really isn't going to be an option, which just makes me smile from ear to ear personally. Night 4 introduces 2 new characters. However, one of them serves to be more of an annoyance than an actual threat, so we'll talk about him first. Greg is a little asshole. Really, this game's Balloon Boy. Not because he has the same mechanic, except I lied because he kinda does. His main goal is to disable your light and leave you vulnerable to Buster. He'll slowly crawl across your office. You will have to click him multiple times to make him go away. If you don't, he'll park his fat ass on the button and prevent you from using your light. You might be asking yourself, Dxtr, clicking on him? How does the game justify that making sense? Perfect question. From the way the phone guy describes it, it's just poking him. So I guess this motherfucker's just the Pillsbury Doughboy. Ticklish ass robot. The other That's so fucking stupid. The other character introduced on this night is Glancy, what I feel is this game's most frustrating character. Glancy tries to get into the back storage room and just literally fuck up everything in the entire building. Rip wires, killing your lights and your camera. So obviously something you should want to avoid. The way you do so is very easy. Remember how I mentioned the cameras had 2 states, on and useless? Well, turns out I lied, as the useless mode actually isn't useless. When Glancy gets into this back room, all you have to do is turn the camera lights off and he won't be able to see shit, making him decide to travel into another room by accident. I'd imagine it's an accident since he can't see, but he could have easily just gotten pissed off and left on his own accord. Which, if he can see where the exit is, you'd probably think he could see the wires, but I guess not. We're inside. Now, let's just put some of these cameras around the building and we'll be all set. Oh, never mind. There's a panel lying down on the shelf. Wait. You hear that? Well, anyways, you'll record calls just to convince him, Andrew. Just do a casual voice or whatever. Nice, these'll work. What the? Did I just hear walking? Wait, who are you? Andrew, run. He's looking for me. I'll see you around, friend. Dope. So we know the name of our phone guy, Andrew. Sounds like whoever is heard in these cutscenes isn't Andrew then. And apparently upon entering the building, something found them. Andrew ran, leaving whoever he was with behind, not knowing what the outcome was. Night 5's phone call actually has something interesting in it, if you could believe that. Andrew tells us that the character introduced on this night has something they want. Finally, a motive for what they're doing. Apparently this new character, Vinard, has a special chip that they really want. Andrew doesn't explain why they want this chip, but I'm sure we're gonna find out. Speaking of Vinard, what does he do? Well, he will try to hack the cameras so that you can't use them, and then wheel his way over to your office to kill you. Not sure why he has to disable the cameras to do that, but he does, I guess. Occasionally, you will see a purple error next to his camera. When you do, all you have to do is go to that camera and turn the light off so he can't see. Because like some people, he can't type without looking at the keyboard. Embarrassing. That's a talent you probably want to learn if you're on a computer all day. But that's really all he does. It really starts to show on this night how difficult this game can be, requiring you to be in the cameras very frequently. The only real chance you'll get to recharge your stability is when Buster is attacking, and I think that was on purpose for the sake of balancing, but maybe I'm being too optimistic. Unlike every other night, Night 5 doesn't have a post-night cutscene, so I can't talk about that. What I can talk about, however, is an Easter egg, and a fun piece of trivia about one of the characters in this game. After completing Night 5, you will unlock Custom Night. Inside, if you set everyone to max and click the Fox plushie in your office, you'll get this jump scare. And if you're interested in something about Vinard, he's actually a character made by Mixlass, the guy that made Tyke & Sons Lumber Co. and Baby's Nightmare Circus, which I've covered on this channel before. Definitely go watch that video after you finish this one. And as a result of using Mixlass's character, Mixlass then used one of Mechless's characters in his game Tyke & Sons Lumber Co. Pretty cool if you ask me. But that is all Project Readjusted has to offer. Overall, I think the game is surprisingly mechanically complex for a first game, something pretty uncommon with fan games that take place in a series like this. But don't let the lack of lore fool you, as Project Readjusted has one of the most interesting stories I've ever seen, and it continues in Project Readjusted 2. It's been so long since I've seen Matthew. He just disappeared. I must find him again. I have so many questions. I could possibly get answers from the new Buster's location. The location is currently being renovated, but they must need some kind of guard. Could be hiding there after all this time. Well, let's see where this takes me in my hunt to find him. Project Readjusted 2 opens with a mission already in mind, finding a man named Matthew. I'm unsure who Matthew could be. My only guess at this time is it's the guy that got left behind by Andrew in the first game, but that is obviously unconfirmed as of now. Our player, Andrew, enters an old Buster's location to look for answers, throwing us right into Night 1. Loading into Night 1, we get a call from the phone guy who goes over the basics of what we'll be doing. He mentions that they're currently working on newer models of all the characters. Not a whole lot of interest to point out during this call. However, what is of interest is how scared I was when I first saw the equivalent of 3 fucking music boxes in one camera. But lucky us, we don't have to worry about that right now. Unlike Readjusted 1, this game doesn't have anything to stop you from staring at your cameras for as long as you'd like, which is a breath of fresh air. But that only means that this game is going to be AIDS in a different way, and we'll figure out how soon. Let's talk about the first and only threat Night 1 introduces, Cable Buster, who I'm just going to be calling Buster because I'm lazy. Buster makes use of a new mechanic this game introduces, the Showtime tapes in Camera 1. When Buster gets to either Camera 5 or Camera 7, you will have to look at him. He will be repeating a day of the week. I don't know why he feels the need to say it out loud constantly. Phone guy explained that apparently that's what he's designed to do, walk around the building and inform people when the show is about to start. But why would he say the day of the week if that was the case? I have no idea. Once Buster says what day of the week the show is on, you will have to quickly go to Camera 1, set the sound file to the day of the week he stated, and play the audio track. This will cause him to meander back to Camera 1 and do a little jiggy. Just kidding, he doesn't dance. I just lied to you. Something isn't right. Papers are coming in about a missing person. A missing person at the old Buster's. It must have been the spy that Matthew took care of. He's on the prowl and I will end it in this place. There's no way I can fail this. His tracks are so hidden yet so predictable. I just need more clues. So, Matthew killed a guy, and not just any guy, he killed a spy. So clearly Matthew is probably a bad and dangerous man. So we should approach with caution. Not knowing anything else, we move on to Night 2. Night 2, the phone guy introduces some new mechanics, but fuck him, my voice sounds better. Night 2 introduces Infested Glancer, but before we talk about what he does, we should talk about the second thing our cameras can do. Show some air ducts. Hooray! The air duct menu is very reminiscent of the ones from Ultimate Custom Night. You have a radar that you can use to detect anything moving inside. Spoiler alert, Glancer is inside. You may also notice that there are 3 things you can repair. Are your FNAF 3 senses going off? Because mine are going haywire and it's making me want to off myself. The 3 things to repair are your radar, your lights, and your doors. Glancer will attack any of the 3 vents in your air ducts, all of which lead to your office. Use the radar to find where he is and close the door when he gets too close. You'll notice that you have a meter on this screen that tracks your door power. If it runs out, you'll have to reboot the doors, and of course, after too many uses of your radar, you'll have to reboot that as well. Glancer brings up a very obvious issue. He's fucking annoying, and he's very fast, easily being the most annoying character in this entire game, demanding the majority of your attention like a clingy girlfriend that you're slowly falling out of love with. And of course, the repairs in this game are some of the most frustrating mechanics I've ever had to deal with, spending the majority of my playthrough listening to that ear-grating beeping. This is where camera stalling comes into play. By staring at Glancer, or Buster if you really wanted to, you can prevent them from moving. Glancer does not initially start in the air ducts, so I'd usually spend as long as I possibly could staring at him so he didn't slip away, because once he's in those ducts is when he becomes Satan. I can't decide on what to do. This whole situation is terrible. One wrong step and I'm in jail or potentially executed. I'm not falling into that hole of guilt with no way to release it. But damn, corpse inside that Glancer suit has definitely gotta be the spy. What else would Matthew have done to the body? Thrown it out? No way. I got my evidence. Now I just have to find Matthew himself. He can't be stopped now. So apparently there's a body inside of Glancer, the spy that Matthew killed. So yeah, that checks out. It really wouldn't be a FNAF game if people weren't getting stuffed into mascot suits, would it? Night 2 introduces 2 new characters, Magic Suit and Wraith Ned. Let's talk about Ned first since he's less annoying. He's this game's version of a Phantom Chica. Occasionally, he can start to appear on one of your cameras. If you don't look away from him fast enough, he'll jump scare you and cause you to need to repair everything. Your radar, your lights, your doors, your dick. Not super annoying, just get some reflexes and you'll be fine. Magic Suit, on the other hand, is very annoying. This is the guy who thought it'd be really funny to have 3 fucking music boxes at the same time. His 3 plugs will slowly decrease in power. You'll have to keep them charged up if you don't want Magic Suit to Magic Mike you. Fuck. You'll have to keep fuck. You'll have to keep him charged up if you don't want Magic Suit to Magic Mike you. But in all honesty, these 2 new characters aren't even an issue. This entire game's main problem is Glancer. God, I hate him so much I could just stick a fork in my ass. That doesn't even make any sense, but irrational anger causes irrational responses sometimes. I don't know what to tell you. What the hell was that purple thing? Is the air in this place toxic? What the hell? Can't keep working here. I must escape before I lose my mind. I don't know what I'm going to do. I have a feeling finding Matthew won't be easy. Speaking of which, I found a tape from the old location. That Glancer suit had made itself in the backstage. How? Must have found the pieces from when the original Glancer and Glossy characters were split up and put together. I don't know how sewing those 2 together made any sense, but I guess it was good for Halloween. Scratch that. Anyways, Matthew forced that spy corpse down inside the Glancer suit while it was trying to escape. What is wrong with these chips? I feel like someone is controlling them. No way this is artificially programmed in the animatronics. It's too mobile. Now there's more than one thing I need to find out. Great. So it sounds to me that Glancer put himself together and tried to escape the building, but while doing so, Matthew stuffed a corpse of the spy inside of him. What the hell is going on? I have no idea, but hopefully some more context will come along soon. The only character introduced on Night 4 is Wraith Finn, being in my opinion the second biggest threat in this game. Finn will quietly appear in your office. Up until this point, you haven't had any reason to ever lower your camera. Well, Finn is now your reason. When he appears in your office, you will have to hold your mouse over the top half of his body until he fades away. If you don't, say hello to a fuck ton of repairs and a quick death. Something I find really weird about this mechanic is how it's explained in the game. The phone guy literally tells us to put our cursor over it.
She said she stared at what she saw, putting your cursor right on its upper half. That's kind of specific, but whatever. Just her, I guess. Anyway, good night.
I've never really seen a FNAF game be meta like this before, but I guess how else are you supposed to explain the mechanic? I suppose you could say to stare at it, but that wouldn't indicate you need to touch it with your mouse. Overall, a very goofy introduction, and a character that I forgot about so much, I think I died to him more than any other character throughout this entire franchise. Okay, I have many questions. How did that design get into this place, and how did it just fade out of existence? It was called Finn. We never got around to finishing it. It was like Buster's pal. The head was never done, but he had his other pieces done. Although I noticed this Finn had his hands gone. This place is so damn weird. This place is so damn weird. Alright, so really nothing interesting said there at all. Finn was supposed to be Buster's friend. Buster is a fucking robot. He has no friends. Moving on to Night 5, as it should be much more interesting and hopefully have a more interesting post-night cutscene. Night 5 introduces the last threat this game has to offer, Wraith Vinard. A character that isn't too terrible to deal with, but will really just act to take more of your needed time away from Glancy, which is obviously not something we want. Vinard only ever appears on camera 8. Occasionally, when checking that camera, you will see Vinard's silhouette with no eyes. You will have to stare at him until his eyes appear. Once they appear, you will then have to quickly look away as if you aren't the fucking reason his eyes appeared in the first place. Something super interesting to note that I haven't mentioned so far is how these wraiths have been explained by the phone guy, being the only characters he's convinced aren't real. But you might be wondering, if he doesn't think they're real, why does he mention them? That's a good point. Apparently, the guard that worked here before us left several notes about these wraiths, and the phone guy is reading her notes to us in the phone calls. Maybe as an in case, maybe just to make fun of her. Who's to say? Either way, I find it interesting. Vinard. With legs? What is going on anymore? I can't take things seriously. Wait, no. I hear sirens. I still haven't found Matthew. And I got several people outside awaiting my arrival. Police cars. Someone found out. Someone told them. Matthew, you bastard. I will find you. You won't get away with this. I can't believe this is how my story ends. It's not right. I can't. Matthew was never found by any officials or Andrew. Andrew attempted to bring the situation to court, but not enough evidence was collected. Andrew was deemed guilty for the corpse inside Buster's Diner World and was sentenced to death row, his execution following a month after being assigned. This was not the outcome he had thought of. It could have been worse. This story is false. Well, goddamn! Quick recap. In this game, we play as Andrew, the phone guy from the first game. We still don't fully know exactly who Matthew is, but he called the police and informed them that Andrew was at the building and had killed someone. They arrived, found the body in the Glancer suit, and had Andrew killed, giving us the fake ending. Oh god, endings, Dxtr. Let's quickly go over what it takes to get this true ending, please. Well, there are several minigames you will need to complete throughout the game in order to get this true ending. Let's blast through how to get them. During each night, a specific camera will have its name flickering slightly. Clicking on the name will shoot you into the minigame. On night 1, it's the main supply camera. On night 2, it's the West Hall. Night 3, it's the secondary supply entry. Night 4, it's the secondary supply entry again. And night 5, it's the power breaker. After completing all the minigames and successfully beating night 5, you'll get the true ending instead. The minigame. It spoke the words I couldn't find myself. Matthew died with his baby. A tape left on him. I can't explain what I've experienced here. I can't go on with this sudden guilt. This damned children's entertainment chain should have never happened. This outcome was not proper. And I can't handle it. I don't know what will happen next. I'll report the death of him and the corpse to the police. At least I can get off with no charges. I can't put myself to do it. I can't go the route my gut wants me to go. Later the same night, Andrew had a heart attack. No evidence was ever turned into the police due to this. Nearly a week later, police arrived after suspicion from pedestrians roaming the streets. Police had not told any officials about what was found and began to demolish the location. Andrew's story is over. An ending to a tragic story. There are no solutions to the problem. Diner World Entertainment was shut down immediately and ran out of business, seeking a new opportunity to reach into kids' hearts. This is the true story. Well, goddamn! Turns out it didn't matter what he did. Andrew still died, and no word of Matthew was ever heard from the police. We just can't win, can we? Well, luckily for us, this storyline does continue, and even more lucky for us, it continues in the best game in the series, and arguably one of the most creative FNAF games ever designed. I know who you are, Andrew Vargas. I've seen your name in records before. I know what you're doing. You want information, lots of it. I'm no provider, but I can lead you to what you want. I know that man, Matthew, has been nothing but a mystery to you. His image is shrouded in a dense fog that your gaze cannot penetrate. But you want to break it, do you not? You can either go the full walk or fall short. There is no try this time. All the information you want to grasp so badly can be obtained. All you have to do is satisfy us. There are 3 captives full of knowledge below the storage facility. Treat them to our satisfaction, and they will live out to the 5th and final day. On that day, they will be free. They will be able to tell you all that they know. This is what you want, right? The data you seek is waiting for you. And here we are! Project Readjusted 3, the last game in the series and undoubtedly the best. This opening cutscene throws us right into the world of this twisted game. We play as Andrew. That might seem a bit confusing since Andrew died in the last game. But guess what? Apparently, both of the fucking endings weren't real. So what the fuck? I'm not joking, by the way. I'm being completely serious. Both of the endings in the second game aren't real. The true ending isn't real. Both the fake ending and the true ending both didn't fucking happen because it takes place before this one. So like, what the fuck was that all about, huh? Anyways, we're not sure who was speaking to us in that cutscene, but apparently there are 3 survivors that have all the information we need to solve whatever is going on with Matthew. And with that, we're tossed into night 1. This game does progress based on objectives instead of time. But rather than a game like Pizzeria Simulator where the tasks you have to complete are mind-numbing, the task in this game actually requires a small bit of brain power, and is truly one of the most creative takes on a FNAF game I've ever seen. We're tasked with protecting these 3 captives. In the cameras, you'll be able to see 3 rooms. Each of these rooms holds one of the captives. You can keep track of their stats at the bottom of the monitor, see how much hunger, thirst, and satisfaction they're all at. Note how much supply you have. Your goal throughout this night is to send these captives shipments of food and water. Then, once they're all satisfied, the night can end. When you open the gate, food and water will slowly be dispensed. You can control which room these packages will go to. The longer you take to send a captive something, the lower their satisfaction will go. At the top of the screen, you'll see a minimum grade you need to complete the night, and which grade you're currently at. Meaning you don't have to fill each room up to its entirety to complete the night. However, I'm a fucking badass and chose to get the best grade possible on each night. In order to refill your supplies, you will have to complete a task. A set of numbers will appear in a random order and you will have to click them in that order. When you finish, your supply will be slightly filled. Side note, if you ever see this sliding minigame instead of the number 1, that's because in that specific moment, I'm using footage from Indie Fuel. And in his playthrough, he was playing an earlier version of the game that used a different minigame. And that's all that happens on night 1. I could talk about the cameras for sure, but I think that'll become much more important in night 2, which actually brings on the first and main threat this game has to offer. But before we can get to that, in true final game lore dump fashion, after each night we get a post-night minigame to have fun with. In this minigame, we just kind of walk around. We check the stage in the main room and notice that there's supposed to be 2 animatronics on stage, the other being Finn. You may remember him from the second game. We go backstage where we believe Finn should be, only to find a dead child on the ground, bringing this minigame to a close. Something really awesome about this game is the patient hub. Dxtr, what's the patient hub? If you'd shut the fuck up and watch the video like a normal person, instead of continuously asking questions like the girl you're watching a movie with that you really wish you didn't invite over because you're just trying to watch the fucking movie, I'd explain it to you. Sorry, lost my temper a little bit. Anyways, the patient hub is on the menu. Using it will actually let you go to talk to the 3 people you're protecting throughout the nights. Throughout the nights, heading to the patient hub, they will give you different pieces of information as the game goes on. On this first night, they don't tell you anything since they've been told they can't yet, probably by whoever put them here. This is such a cool and interesting integration into this game, and I think this is one of the big reasons why this game in particular is so underrated. Night 2 is where this game really starts to get real, introducing the first main threat of the game, Busted. Inside of your monitor, you'll notice the left half that I haven't really mentioned. Well, I'm about to mention it. You'll notice that it only has 3 cameras, but don't let that fool you. Busted will move around the cameras, not only trying to get to you, but to get to the captives as well. If at any point you can't find him on your cameras, that means he's in your office. Your office, by the way, is another thing I've neglected to mention. there are 4 entrances to your office, 2 on each side. You have the 2 obvious hallways in front of you, and then the 2 holes in your walls to the sides of you. Busted is very quiet, so you will have to make sure you're tracking him. Once Busted enters your office, you will have to scare him away with the light. Now, you may think, like most FNAF games, that we'd be given a flashlight, but no, that'd be too easy. In Project Readjusted 3, you're given a fucking glow stick to defend yourself. You know, one of those crack and shake things? Yeah, that's our main means of defense. When Busted is in your office, you have to hold the glow stick on him to scare him away, but there's a catch. Your glow stick cannot be used for very long at all. It has a very short lifespan, so you have to check really fucking quickly. Obviously, if you don't, you'll die. But if you remember, I mentioned Busted being able to attack the captives as well. While watching Busted on your cameras, you may notice that on any of the 3, he may get a bit too close to some of the patient doors. If he does, that's how you know he's about to attack them. When you see him doing this, you must ring the bell on your desk. The noise will attract him to your office and away from the patients. Something super interesting about Busted attacking patients is that if he kills one, you don't lose, and it will actually make the remaining nights easier since you'll have less mouths to feed. However, as I'm sure you could have guessed, if a patient dies, they will never come back throughout the rest of the game. That means no more talking to them in the patient hub at the end of the nights. And of course, if you let all 3 patients die, then you will lose the game. This right here is one of the coolest mechanics I've ever seen in a FNAF game. Project Readjusted 3 is literally just being placed in a saw trap, really. In the post-night 2 minigame, we talk with the other guards about what we saw. They mentioned this is the second time this has happened. Walking up to the stage, we find another dead child, presumably killed by Buster. We're told to check the office for anything else, and we do. Upon finding nothing, we walk back, only to see the ghost of some unknown spirit that looks like Finn walking away.
I started seeing some weird things recently. They were purple weird things. It got closer as I blinded myself, but as I looked at it, it faded away. I don't know what to do. At least the leader himself isn't down here. He is very strict. He would be looking at me, making sure I was staying put and acting appropriately. He threatened to stop liquids from coming into my room if I didn't listen. He really wants us to go his way, so just send us supplies like he wants, at least when he is nearby. As long as he doesn't notice you aren't doing what he wants, he should be fine.
This place is a crazed house, and it's all your fault. I can't believe this. You better get out of here in the end. With me alive!
I've started hearing screams. It sounded like it came from a room adjacent to mine. Maybe I'm hallucinating. After all, we are under that old building. You know it had the fume problem, right? Surely you do. You used to work there. You told us all about you. My sister used to work there, but she hasn't touched it since. I think I've figured out why now. Just don't forget about your main threat, but don't let yourself get too paranoid about it. You got this. On night 3, we get introduced to the last threat this game has to offer, the purple hallucinations, explained by the fact that there are strange fumes coming from the facility above. These hallucinations act as a nuisance, but a nuisance you're going to want to maintain. They can appear in any of your cameras or in your office, and they're very quiet. If they're on your cameras, you have to stare at them, and if they're in your office, you have to flash your glow stick at them. They will never kill you themselves, but they will scare the patients if you don't get rid of them. And if the patients get scared, they'll scream, and Busted will kill them. Not at all a difficult threat, but an annoying one nonetheless. The game doesn't really start to get too difficult yet at this point, so let's just move on to the post-night 3 minigame. In the post-night 3 minigame, we really just want to get out of the building at this point. We meet a guard who says that the crowd outside is still going spastic. As we try to walk outside, I'm assuming we start hallucinating? I'm not really sure because I have no idea what else I'm looking at could possibly even be. And the minigame comes to a close.
I'm too paranoid. You need to just get us out of here. The creatures are multiplying. Just more staring. Listen out for a squeal if something goes wrong over here. Those purple figures always come for us. Just make sure to get rid of them, please.
What's going on over on your end? I keep hearing such strange noises. If you want something out of me, you better keep me satisfied. I don't want whatever's coming for you near me. Ring the bell you were given if one of them is heading to my room, I want to ring that bell all the time, since it is causing noises, of course. Don't be stupid.
Hey, I still can't talk about what I know yet, but I think I know something that may help you in your endeavors. I know some of the quirks of that thing that is hunting you right now. It's very stealthy. You need to keep an eye on it all the time. It may hide in various spots, so make sure to be up to snuff with your surroundings. I don't know much about its chip data, though. I only ever overheard my sister read out some blueprints she picked up on her last workday a few years ago. Night 4 doesn't introduce anything new, however I do want to take this time to mention a mechanic this game has that makes the entire experience way more difficult than it would normally be. Switching cameras. I know, that may sound like a mechanic that most people wouldn't even think twice about, but it's on this night that Busted can start to get pretty quick when moving around. So quickly moving through the cameras will become important. However, even though there's only 3 cameras, switching through them quickly can prove to be quite nerve-wracking. You cannot click any camera at any time. You can only move to cameras adjacent to the camera you're currently on, which means if you're on camera 1 and want to get to camera 3, you will first have to click on camera 2. Typically, this wouldn't be an issue, but you have to wait for a static animation to play each time you switch a camera before you can switch it again. Sure, the animation itself isn't very long, but when you have to switch as much as you do, that time will quickly add up. Overall, this is more of a nitpick than anything, but it is something I noticed during my playthrough, which you can see on my second channel, Dxtr Black. The post-night 4 minigame is a little bit weird. We play as the ghost we saw at the end of the post-night 2 minigame. We walk around the building, talking to children and guards, hearing messages like, "I blame you," and "How can we punish you?" Eventually, we find the body of another child. We say that we can restore it, and upon coming into contact, we get the message, "You must kill them for me."
Just one more to go. Once you left last night, I heard a strange tumbling noise outside. It was metallic and heavy. I don't know what it was, but it may be coming for you this time. Nothing rings a bell, but every time I heard some alarm, it would scamper. I don't think whatever it was likes noise. You have something to play noise? Yes. Please use that to keep yourself safe, but only if it sounds like it's coming close. Using noise at the wrong time may cost you.
You better get me out of here ASAP! I'm done playing these games. If it weren't for that guy holding a pistol to my hand for telling you my information early, I would have been long gone. Get it together! I'm tired of talking to you. Get on with it!
I heard some ruckus outside, friend. I recognized the weird noise pattern from the debugging process from upstairs. Someone was altering the mascot's code. I know this just because of my sister's curiosity. She brought back some pink robot from her workplace to show me how messed up her work environment was. That thing was tossed in the end. It couldn't move regardless, but the same debugging process intro pattern she used was similar to the one I heard upstairs last night. I can only assume that the two systems are related, most likely by the same manufacturer. All I know is that those old models never liked being looked at after some wear and tear. We flashed a light on the pink thing and it sparked a little. It was a very strange find indeed. Well, I hope you can use this information to your advantage tonight. Let's hope we can see the sun once more. Night 5 introduces one final threat. I know guys, I've been lying constantly throughout this video, but I prefer to call it keeping you on your toes. The final threat introduced is Subject Model 3A, being another annoying character. He will wander around your cameras and you just have to make sure you're not looking at him. If you look at him for too long, I'm assuming you can guess what happens to you. Major bun pounding, salad tossing, you get it, don't look at him. Overall, he really doesn't add anything new to the mix, really just making it more annoying to keep track of Busted. But if you can complete it, we'll move on to the final minigame. In this final minigame, we play as a child, walking around the restaurant following what appears to be the ghost of a child. We follow them into the back room where the first kid was killed and speak to one of the animatronics. They apologize for what they did to us, probably in reference to killing us. They said their chip made them do it and explained that someone else is pulling the strings and making the robots kill people. It ends off by telling us we will never see it again and to leave. Then the minigame comes to a close. Andrew Vargas, it seems you have found your way. We cannot say we are surprised at your feat, especially considering your perseverance was quite equal to your past endeavors. You found your sources, exactly what you wanted. Though, did you ever think to look for more data you could use towards your search? The patients you have saved do not hold all of the information, but just enough for you to draw a plausible conclusion. Regardless of your intentions with the data you hold, your time here is over. You have what you came for, but do you feel empty with what you hold? That is a question that will be left in the air for you to grasp. For now, you may take your prized patients outside of this facility with you. Until you find your true desire and recollection, we thank you for playing our game.
I can't believe it! You did it? I'm free from this place? Oh, I must tell you what I know. Well, okay. I was a producer for one of the most popular animatronic performer shows a few years back. I was vital, but I got to the point where I knew too much, and that is how I wound up here. This man was someone I used to work with. He created these things for his own entertainment business, but he eventually took it too far. He created a powerful computer to control all of his creations from a distance, with whatever behavior he wanted. He always left his plans on his work desk, but one day he felt like something was off. Some grew suspicious of his projects, myself included, but I never took it as far as this one group of people. They were dedicated to finding his grand computer. They went as far as setting up hidden cameras around the building to track anything they could, anything that could leave a trace back to its whereabouts. But they never found it, because the man attacked and killed one of them. I saw it on old discarded footage. That is all I know. I hope this helps you.
It took you long enough? Let's make this conversation quick. I was one of the construction employees set to renovate the supply and storage facility for future use. It was gonna be under some childish name like Busters, I think. I was the only one that showed up to the job early, like always. I got to one of the storage trucks I left outside, and that's where my life took a turn. They had a rotting corpse and dismantled robots in that truck, man. A rotting corpse. You could never understand how disgusting that was to see face to face. Sucker fell right out of the truck too, like it was last in line. It was in some blue wreck of a mascot suit. It had a camera stuffed in its mouth. It was horrible. I think you get it now. I went to go get my bag and quit my job, but some gray thing grabbed me and pulled me deeper into that building. Next thing you know, I was dangling for my life. Awesome, right? Well, it pulled me past some satellite. It was covered in those dumb white masks you've seen. The same one the guy is wearing. It's all some weird gimmick. But I know what that gimmick is for. That satellite was being used to get that white rabbit robot back from the depths of the forest, right off of Brickview Boulevard. It had to have been made for that. I'm no fool. I knew about that white monster rumor, and I even went hunting for it one time with the boys. It has to be linked. That's all I got for you. We better not come into contact like this again.
I have to owe you something for your determination, my friend. I'm honored. Oh, right. I do owe you something. I have something to tell you. Before this, I was an aspiring mechanical engineer. Machines have always enticed me, so I had been studying it for months prior to this incident. As you know, my sister had worked at that old supply and storage facility years ago. She was my main inspiration for this interest of mine. That night, when she came home with that pink robot, changed everything for me. We dug into the hardware of the robot ourselves. Our father had some spare tools in the garage, so we didn't have to rip into it to damage the thing even worse. We found a lot of weird oddities. One of the most obvious ones was its back. It had the tips of endoskeleton fingers buried in the suit piece, like it was torn apart by one of its own.
Another one was its eye. We found a serial number printed in a fine black font face in the back of the eyelids, but it only routed to a 404 page on our home computer. Lastly, it had a code written on the inside of each of the suit parts. It read Model Pound 3C. I don't know the significance of the C. Maybe it was part of a trio, unless there are models with parts 3D or more. We extracted the chip from the robot, though. It was in a very rough condition, but it was somewhat intact. It even had a USB slot in it, which was extremely new at the time. We plugged the cord into our home computer, but it pulled up a ton of strange prompts. We clicked through all of them and found a folder with many text files inside of it. A lot of it was just a garbled mess, but some had what seemed to be addresses. They were impossible for us to decipher fully. Was this animatronic generation holding locations? That's the strange part. What's even more strange is that it had a file named task.txt amongst all the other distorted file names. We opened it, but for some reason the USB had ejected itself. We tried plugging it back into the computer, but it wouldn't pick it up again. All I was able to see before it disconnected was something along the lines of, "He must see what I have done, and maybe he will realize he should have stayed by my side and know what I'm doing." That's all that I know, friend. See you on the other side.
Project Readjusted's story doesn't throw the answers at you. It gives you pieces, conversations, job descriptions, weird one-liners, and you're meant to piece together what was really happening behind the walls of Buster's Diner World. But once you line everything up, the picture is pretty clear. Two employees start a project they don't fully understand. It gets out of control, and one of them ends up paying the price for it. It all starts after Buster's shuts down. The public thinks the place is done, the animatronics are boxed up, and everyone has moved on. But Diner World Entertainment hasn't. They're still in the building, still tinkering, and still trying to push something forward. Something they only ever call the project. And at the center of it are two people, Andrew Vargas and his co-worker, Matthew. The two are exploring the closed building long after hours, checking the animatronics, looking through old hardware, and trying to locate something hidden deep inside the cast. Something the company wants extremely badly. A special chip connected to a hostile presence in the animatronics. They can't pull it out safely, they can't study it while it's roaming, and they can't risk handling it directly. So their entire plan is built around one thing: lure the entity into range, pull the chip, replace it, and get out. But they can't do it themselves. They need someone to sit in the office every night, act like a regular night guard, and unintentionally draw the animatronics towards them so Andrew and Matthew can track the patterns. That's where Hayden comes in. On paper, Hayden is just watching the cameras for 6 short nights. In reality, he's bait. Everything he sees, Buster, Glancer, Redeemer, all of it is part of a larger plan to drag this thing out. And for the most part, the plan works. The animatronics are active, the patterns are recorded, the project moves into its second stage. But then something happens that completely derails Matthew. Someone else breaks into the building. A man who isn't supposed to be there. Someone snooping around who gets far too close to whatever Andrew and Matthew are doing. The fandom calls him the spy, and Matthew panics. Instead of letting their secret get out, he kills the intruder. Not an accident, a choice. And it's the moment everything changes. Andrew is horrified, Matthew goes quiet, and from that point on, the two of them aren't on the same page anymore. Not long after that, Matthew disappears. No goodbye, no confession, no explanation. He's just gone. And Andrew is left with two things: a project he no longer trusts, and a friend who might have destroyed himself trying to finish it. When Project Readjusted 2 begins, we're not playing as Hayden anymore. We're someone closer to the company, a technician finishing their final assignment for Diner World Entertainment. This job isn't about survival, it's about data. Watching animatronic behavior, tracking motion patterns, feeding information back into whatever the project is turning into. And in the background of all of this, someone, heavily implied to be Andrew, keeps repeating the same thoughts. He's been gone for so long. I need answers. Where did he go? The entire game feels like Andrew trying to keep the company satisfied while quietly searching for any clue about Matthew's disappearance. Meanwhile, the animatronics are no longer just mascots. They're infested, corrupted, wired shut, and torn open. The prototypes that were experimented on long after Buster's closed. The project has clearly moved forward, and whatever they pulled from those animatronics is now being pushed into something else, something bigger, something human. And Andrew eventually gets the lead he's been waiting for, something that points away from Buster's, away from the diner entirely, and into a new location, a facility the company is tied to, a place where living subjects are being kept alive for testing. And to follow this trial, Andrew makes a deal, a job offer he can't refuse, something that promises answers about Matthew at a cost. That's where Project Readjusted 3 picks up. Andrew is now inside this medical facility, sitting in a monitoring booth, watching over patients who can't leave their rooms. His job is to keep them alive by sending supplies down long, empty hallways, making sure they don't lose consciousness, and trying not to get killed by something stalking him in the dark. A twisted, hulking version of Buster that shouldn't even exist in a place like this. But the deeper Andrew goes, the more obvious it becomes that this facility is just the project's final phase. The animatronics were only the beginning. The chip, the patterns, the experiments. All of it was leading to human testing. And somewhere inside this building, one of the patients isn't just another victim. He's the thing Andrew has been searching for since the moment Matthew vanished. Matthew didn't run. He didn't escape. He didn't move on. He was taken, absorbed into the same project he helped build. In Project Readjusted 3, Matthew is the subjected member, a living test subject altered by the very experiments he and Andrew once tried to control. And that's the real truth behind Project Readjusted. A company digs up something dangerous hidden inside their animatronics. 2 employees tried to pull off a secret extraction. Someone dies, one of them vanishes, and years later the entire operation has grown into a human experimentation program, with Matthew trapped at the center of it, and Andrew desperately trying to undo the damage. This game never spells everything out, and the dev has even said the full story was never completely written down, but from what everything we do see, the trilogy comes down to a single idea. They started the project together, Andrew survived it, Matthew didn't. But as far as I could gather, and as far as I'm aware, that's all Project Readjusted has to offer. There was supposed to be a final installment, Project Readjusted 4 Jet Black, but it was cancelled due to scheduling conflicts and the pair incident of Game Jolt, which I'm not going to dive into today. Maybe another time. Overall, I think each game in this series progressively got better and better. I think the story I was able to piece together is really interesting and very good, but I really wish it was more concrete so I didn't have to speculate as much as I did. Project Readjusted 3 is a phenomenal FNAF game and one of the most creative I've ever seen, and I highly recommend you give this series a try. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think Project Readjusted is actually just a confusing dumpster fire? Let me know in the comments below. In my 5 Nights at Maggie's video, I asked you guys which series you'd like to see me cover next, and my favorite comment is this one by Witchery. They said Tealerland, and while that's not really a series, it is a game I really loved and that I do have on my list to talk about on Dxtr White. Popular pre-existing IPs in FNAF games. I'm sure quite a few examples already come to your mind when I say that. 5 Nights at Wario's, 5 Nights at Sonic's, 5 Nights at the Krusty Krab, among many others are very popular examples of this. However, in my journey of playing FNAF games to find games worthy enough to talk about, there's one very popular IP I see show up very frequently. An IP that has so many games made by multiple different talented individuals, and the person who made the game we'll be talking about today needs no introduction. Today, we're going to be talking about a FNAF game about Teletubbies. You might think that's weird since I just talked about the Tubbyland Archives Act 1 a few weeks ago, but this is a perfect example of just how many FNAF fan games have been built around this IP. Today, we'll be covering The Remnants of Tubbyland, a FNAF fan game made by Avocado Dreams, the same person responsible for one of the most terrifying FNAF games ever designed, Graveyard Shift at Freddy's. Rest assured, this game is terrifying as well, and not only that, it's also really hard. So let's waste no more time and jump right into the remnants of Tubbyland. To begin, we have to talk about the setting in which this game takes place. Typically in FNAF games, we see the setting as a restaurant, with animatronics that were on stage and would sing in the party room while the children ate their food. But not this time around. The remnants of Tubbyland takes place in a daycare that's been seemingly left to rot. We take the job as a night guard, and before we know it, we're thrown into a twisted death trap. Loading into the office for the first time, there's already a lot to talk about.
Please don't be as hard as the fucking other. What the fuck am I looking at?
Let's start by mentioning how fucking creepy this game looks. Obviously, we've got this little fella sitting in front of us, and of course, he will become more important later on. But seriously, just look at the scenery in this game. I honestly think it's creepier than Graveyard Shift. Everything just looks so grainy, uncanny, and gross. It seems like a really nasty place to have to spend your time, and yet here we are spending our time here. We get our night one phone call, and it's just about as basic as you could imagine. The typical night one phone call stuff. The phone guy introduces where we are, why we're watching over the place, and pretends like there's nothing to be worried about, because the murder robots would never murder us.
So if they enter your room, they could knock stuff over and probably damage themselves more than they already have.
Just say they can blow my shit out. The reason we're given as to why we're here is pretty unclear. However, we're told that our main objective is just to watch the robots since they are capable of moving around. At least they can acknowledge that this is something that is happening. Of course, he says they won't hurt us, but also decides it's a great idea to explain to us how to defend ourselves on the off chance they come into our office. He explains their facial recognition and says that if they move around too much, they may damage themselves. So I guess we've got some suicidal robots around here. Fantastic. Anyways, how many threats are introduced on night one? 2. 2 threats are introduced on night 1, so let's go over them. Let's start with this game's main attraction, Dipsy.
So I don't see nobody yet. Bro, let me tell you, Avocado Dreams, she knows how to set an atmosphere. What the fuck is that?
Dude, Dipsy Dick will begin on camera 2. If we take a look at the map, we can see the path that the characters will have to take to reach us. It's a little bit confusing, so really take a look at it. As you can see, camera 2 is not actually connected to our office at all. This entire building is just one big spiral to reach our office. So Dipsy Dick will have to start from camera 2, then go to 3, 4, 5, and to finally end up in camera 7 before he can attack us. Make sense? Good. Dipsy makes no noise when moving around, so you'll have to track him yourself on the cameras. Once he reaches camera 7, he actually has 2 phases. One far away from the camera, and another where he's a lot closer to the camera. And even despite the fact that this is a robot, somehow his face is able to distort to an unrealistic length. Don't question it. Ooh, spooky. That's all that matters.
Like an entire half of the building has no cameras in it.
That's so ugly. That's so ugly. Once Dipsy makes it to the second phase on camera 7, his next movement opportunity will have him disappear. When he does, that's how you know he's about to attack you. Since Dipsy will never move backwards, it's always easy to keep track of him. Once he does disappear, you'll have to put on the sun mask located on your desk. It works exactly the same as the mask from FNAF 2, and of course, Avocado Dreams did not disappoint with the animations. Take a look.
Oh my god, dude, that'd be so sick!
Damn, bro.
That is so cool. That's so cool, bro.
I can't lie to you, but now this shit cool as fuck. This shit cool as fuck.
Just creepy as fuck, isn't it? God, I love it. It's so cool. Anyways, something else about your mask that you've probably noticed is this asthma meter. This is basically just the scrapped toxic meter from Five Nights at Freddy's 2. The longer your mask is on, the higher your asthma meter will increase. And if it increases all the way, the mask will forcefully be taken off, and you'll have to wait for a cooldown before you can put it on again. And that's obviously not a good thing, especially not on later nights. Now, for the second threat this night introduces, Trumpet. Trumpet acts as more of a nuisance character rather than an actual threat in this game. However, don't let that make you think you can ignore him, because you most certainly cannot. Occasionally, you'll be able to see Trump Dick rising up from behind your desk. It does make a noise, but on later nights, you may find it hard to hear it while you're on the cameras, so you should get into the habit of checking often. When Trumpet starts to rise, you will have to quickly find his error message that randomly spawns on one of your cameras. My least favorite FNAF mechanic hidden into a character that technically doesn't enter the camera themselves. I'm onto you, game. Watch your back. When you find the error, simply press the power button and Trumpet will fall back behind your desk. But what happens if you just let Trumpet fully appear and start blasting your eardrums with the loudest sound you've ever heard in your entire life? Well, the sound that emits from it will slowly cause the AI value of every other character to slowly increase until Trumpet is turned off. And even after you turn Trumpet off, you want to hear something crazy? The AI values will never go back down throughout the night. So let me tell you, you do not want to miss a Trumpet attack. You will very quickly regret it. Old Trumpet dick. Night 2 introduces probably the most revolting, nasty, fuck-ass character I've ever seen in my life on this earth. Luckily, it's not nearly as bad as one of Avocado Dream's other demon spawns, Sheriff Slither Dick, but trust me, this character... Luckily, it's not nearly as bad as one of Avocado Dream's other demon spawns, Sheriff Slither Dick, but trust me, this character will still make you want to cover your willy with honey and jump wiener first into a fire ant hill. That character, of course, is Poe. Poe is a very simple character to understand. However, that's probably the scariest part about her. Poe starts on camera 1. She will then move to camera 3. From 3, she will either move to camera 2 or camera 4. You want her to move to camera 4. Trust me, it's better for your mental health overall. She will then move between cameras 6, 4, 5, and 3 for the rest of the night. She will never naturally wander to your office, but don't let that make you think you're safe. You're not safe. You're never safe. This is easily the worst character in the entire game. While Poop is on the cameras, if you're looking at the camera she's on, you'll be able to hear the song she emits as she wanders around. You'll have to track her around the cameras to constantly make sure the song is playing. If the song ever stops, you're in trouble. On night 2, a large red button will appear on your desk. If the music stops, all you have to do is push this button and her music will reset. But you have to be really fast. If her music is off, that's when she'll make her way to your office. If you at any point see her in camera 7, you need to hit the button immediately. Faster than you've ever hit anything else before in your entire life. Faster than a 1950s husband hits his wife after coming home and not having a martini in his hand the moment he walks through the door. If you don't, obviously... if you don't... if you don't, obviously she's... Damn it. If you don't, obviously she's gonna bounce into your office and start bouncing on it crazy style. Riding it like a bike with no seat type shit. Oh, but he's fast. It is me or did Poe get really fast? Oh shit. Oh my god, my ass just fell off. Fuck. And before you say anything, look at this ugly fuck. You don't want that. The problem that Poe brings into this game is obviously requiring your constant attention. And Dipsy has already been shown to require a lot of your attention as well. And trust me, the synergy that Poe has with every other character that will be introduced into this game is prominent and brutal the entire way through. So let's continue talking about them, shall we? Night 3 brings on this fuckhead in your office, Tinky Winky. So I really like that. I don't like this fucker staring at me right now. I can't lie. That I'm not a huge fan of, the way he's looking at me. He's like licking his lips and shit, and it's like, let's not. Okay. Ooh. Ooh. Tinky Dick works in the exact same way as Peggy from Showman's The Awakening, which I've covered on this channel before, and you should go watch that video after you finish this one. Tinky Dick is very much a weeping angel character. If you're looking at him, he won't move. But if you have your camera up, he will slowly begin to creep towards you throughout 3 different phases. Each phase is pretty obvious, so don't worry about not noticing it. After the final phase, he will attempt to jump you like you're in the streets of Compton. All you have to do is put your mask on and he'll go back to where he was. However, unlike Dipsy, Tinky requires you to be a lot faster with your mask, and you can't put on your mask before an attack to bait the attack out. Tinky has to attack before putting the mask on will push him backwards. Thankfully, if you're on your cameras, he will force them down when he attacks. So it isn't just a guessing game, but you have to be really, really fast, especially on later nights. You'll have close to only 1 second to put it on once he attacks, lest your butt cheeks get spread and he lathers peanut butter and jelly on that shit like a midnight snack. Oh, okay. It's blatantly obvious. Huh, bitch? Was I just not fast enough? Do you have to be like really, really quick with it? Obviously, Tinky brings up an enormous problem. With 2 characters requiring you to constantly watch them on the cameras, adding a character that penalizes you for using the cameras is obviously going to cause quite a bit of problems. This is actually the problem that led to me having to change the way I play the game and switch up my strategy to solely focusing on Poe and occasionally checking on camera 7 to see if Dipsy has arrived yet. It's also this character that made me decide to start forcing attacks from him. For example, let's say Dipsy just attacked me. I know it's going to be a while before Dipsy can come to attack me again. So in order to not have the asthma meter blow up my guts, I would sit and stare at the cameras until Tinky attacked me, resetting his timer before the next Dipsy attack. It's a very AIDS strategy that makes me die a little bit on the inside, but it does get the job done well enough. Well, now it's time to move on to night 4 and introduce a character so sepsis-ridden you'd think you've injected yourself with every disease on Earth. Lala. Lala starts in camera 1 like poop. She has a set path around the map to get to your office, very similar to Dipsy. On this night, you'll notice that each camera Lala will travel through will now be equipped with a camera button, allowing you to take a picture of each camera and obviously emitting a flash of light at the same time. I'm sure you can tell exactly where this is going. Lala will move throughout the cameras during this night. You will have to flash her on whatever camera she's on to push her back. Then go to the camera you pushed her to and flash her again. Keep doing this until you push her back into camera 1. When she goes back into camera 1, she will shut down and won't attack again for a while. So doing this is very important. And if you're lucky, you can catch her really quickly and only have to push her back once. The problem with her? She is very, very fast. She will move through her cameras faster than the fat bitch in line at the Golden Corral who's hopping up and down because the buffet just got refilled. Sit down, Shamu.
There are so many things that I don't understand. I don't know what's going on right now. Oh. You're telling me she got all the way through the cameras that fast? You're telling me she got through every camera that fast? No. No. This is bullshit. Let me tell you what this is. This is bullshit, bro. Like, what the fuck is that? What is that? How the fuck am I supposed to keep track of those 3 fuckers at the same time while also not looking at the cameras for this fucker? I'll tell you how, you don't. That's bullshit. What the fuck? We now have an interesting group of mechanics to talk about. Thankfully, even though this game does rely a lot on RNG, there was a very clear attempt put in place by Avocado Dreams to mitigate how much RNG is actually involved. The main example I can point to is Tinky Winky. Tinky Winky will never attack you if Lala has left camera 1. This prevents an insta-loss that would otherwise be present. Obviously, if Tinky Dick is about to attack and you get an attack from Lala, if you were to deal with Lala, then Tinky would attack you, and while being attacked, Lala would easily make it to your office and kill you. So thank God Tinky isn't able to attack you while Lala is. However, his aggression meter will still increase, meaning that immediately after you deal with Lala, it's very likely you will get an insta attack from Tinky. So you'll need to be fast, but at least there isn't any luck involved. Night 5 introduces nothing new, and is just a much harder version of Night 4. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you guys. I was not able to beat Night 5. I'm sure that if I threw in hours upon hours of attempts, I would have beaten it eventually, but I just don't have the type of patience like other people do. I applaud you if you beat it, but I did not. But now we get to talk about what everyone who's familiar with this game has been waiting for: Custom Night, and the secret night that comes along with it. If you go into Custom Night, you may notice that there is an extra character slot just labeled NA. You'll also notice that you're unable to set its AI value. If you input the code 34193 into the other characters and press start,
you will be entered into the secret boss night this game has to offer, Dream Night. Dream Night introduces 2 new threats, while disabling all other threats we've seen so far. These 2 new characters are Nunu and Evocation. Let's start with Evocation since he was easily the character that confused me the most. Evocation will begin on camera 2, slowly emerging from a screen. After he leaves that camera, he will randomly teleport to any other camera except camera 1. You'll have to quickly find him and keep your eyes on him. From there, he can attack you in one of 2 ways. The first way will have him get super close to the camera and laugh like a child, which just fills me with rage because I hate children. When he does, all you have to do is flash whichever camera he went to. His other attack has him disappear from the camera entirely. If he does, he will immediately teleport inside of your office and float above you like he's possessed by the devil. If this is the attack he chooses, all you have to do is put your mask on and he will leave instantly. You do have to be pretty fast with both attacks, so make sure you have your reflex game on point. Another thing to point out about the way Evocation attacks is that he will never attack the same way twice. So, his first attack will be random, but from there it will be incredibly easy to predict how he will attack since he'll just be alternating between the 2, which honestly serves to make this boss fight easier. Anyways, on to the only other threat present in Dream Night, Nunu, the vacuum, or if you have bad teeth and your country's food tastes like shit, a Hoover. Nunu is very simple, really just being a distraction character. He will randomly wander around cameras 4, 5, and 6. Occasionally, you may hear a loud metal bang. That means Nunu is just being a pesky little guy. Find which camera he's on, which should be pretty easy since his eyes will be flashing and he'll be emitting a nasty noise. Simply flash the camera he's on and bada bing bada boom, he's dealt with. Upon beating Dream Night, you will unlock that special character in the custom night screen. Spoiler alert, it's fucking Evocation. You might be wondering where Nunu is. Well, Nunu is actually a part of Evocation. So if you activate Evocation, Nunu will be activated alongside him as well, which I honestly think is really cool. As far as the story of this game goes, Avocado Dreams kept it pretty simple. After completing Night 5, we get this news article along with our paycheck. Infamous Tubbyland Daycare finally sees its end after a 15-year long battle to sell the property. Following a tragic accident back in 2000, the childcare facility promptly closed its doors and left the building dormant, alone, and forgotten. Years having flown by, locals urged city officials to accelerate the auction process due to rumors that have been circulating the desolate daycare. The property is planned to be utilized for a brand new facility using the same philosophies and presentation ideas, but aiming for a new and safer direction. So it's very clear that something terrible happened in 2000. So what could that possibly be referring to? According to the wiki, back in 2000, Nunu fucking exploded inside of the daycare, starting a massive fire. Our player, Parker Anderson, was in the building at the time with his son, Lucas. Lucas most likely being the identity of Evocation, which would also make sense as to why Nunu is activated alongside of him and why a child will laugh when he gets close to the camera. When the fire erupted, Parker left the building and saved himself, leaving his son behind to be burned alive. Years later, as the building is going to be demolished after being sold, Parker takes up the night shift job. He's unable to move on. Filled with guilt, he's not capable of forgetting what he did. Of course, Lucas's soul lingers inside the daycare, still angry, unforgiving of what his father did to him. So in Dream Night, he lashes out to attack. There's honestly not a whole lot of info on this game's lore. That is quite literally all I was able to gather from it. If there's anything I'm missing or something new comes up after this video goes live, please let me know in the comments below, as I definitely feel like there's a bit more to this. But as far as I'm aware, that's all the remnants of Tubbyland has to offer. Overall, I think this game is incredibly scary. It's very good at keeping you on your toes the entire time, and while I may feel like the later nights are not balanced very well, and that there is still a large deal of RNG to have to deal with, I can't go without appreciating Avocado Dreams' attempts at mitigating it as much as possible. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think that this game is just a bad attempt at recreating the amazing experience that was Graveyard Shift at Freddy's? Let me know in the comments below. In my Tealerland video, I asked you guys what your favorite non-traditional FNAF game was, and my favorite answer was this one by GeoFreaks. They said Tyke & Sons Lumber Co., and I think that that's one of the most enjoyable experiences I've ever had since starting my channel, and you can see my full playthrough of it over on my second channel, Dxtr Black. Subscribe to the channel, I'd appreciate it a lot. Thank you to all of my super fan channel members, you guys farm aura. I've been Dxtr, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya!